Chapter 261. Zhang Tan had never seen the man before. All the teachers in the kindergarten were female, and they had been selected many times and had some connections. They were relatively reliable. Zhang Tan knew both of the teachers in Zhua Kitten's class. There was no such man. Tsinghua University's kindergarten was very strict. Strangers were not allowed to enter. The children of the school staff were all here. The guard was also an old man. He knew most of the people here. Therefore, it was impossible for him to make such a mistake and let in an unfamiliar person. Of course, that was only for people. It was useless against special cases like Zhang Tan. Those walls and fences could not stop cats at all. Zhang Tan jumped onto a tree not far away and looked at Zhua Kitten and the man. Zhua Kitten was setting up building blocks. She set up a small car. The man next to her was guiding her. After that, he probably got anxious and squatted down to help her set up. He did not stop talking. Zhang Tan listened. This person was talking about high-end cars. To many children, this was a completely unfamiliar term. To them, a Hummer was not as attractive as a fire engine. "I'm still missing a wheel." Zhua Kitten looked at the person next to her expectantly. "I'll go look for it." The man set up a building block, then got up and took a step back. He was going to the box where the building blocks were placed to see if there was anything suitable. Just as the man retreated, he stepped on something when he landed on the ground. His foot slipped and he fell to the ground. The indoors were covered with foam mats, but this was not the case outside, especially the place that Zhua Kitten had chosen. Although it was not a cement floor and was covered with a layer of wood, it was still painful to slip like this. Looking at the man's twisted face on the ground, one could tell how it felt. Before Zhua Kitten could react, a child who was slightly closer to her laughed out loud when he saw the man slip. The other children heard the commotion and looked over. They also laughed. It was easy for a chain reaction among children to form. After being laughed at by a group of children, the man lost a lot of face. The two female teachers heard the commotion and came over to see the situation. The teacher surnamed Bai was especially nervous when she saw the man's appearance. "How is it?" Teacher Bai asked. "It's okay." The man on the ground struggled to get up. Although he said it was okay, it was also because of his pride. Looking at the way he was gasping for air, it was definitely not that easy. "It's a marble." Another teacher found the reason why the man slipped. Marbles were very dangerous for children in the lower class. They could easily slip and accidentally eat them. After all, many children like to put anything they picked up into their mouths. Therefore, marbles were definitely not among the toys provided by the kindergarten. It was impossible for such things to appear here. It must have been left behind by one of the kids from the senior class. The man gritted his teeth and said, "A few days ago, he saw some kids in the upper class playing this game. Although they put it away and cleared the area, he didn't expect to miss one." The two female teachers searched the field one more time. After confirming that there were no more marbles, Teacher Xiaofan helped the man and left. They went to the school hospital to take a look, while the other teacher stayed behind to continue looking after him. Zhang Tan, who was not far away, saw clearly that Zhua Kitten had taken out the glass bead from her pocket and placed it there when the man was squatting down to set up the building blocks. The two teachers would never link this incident to little kitten Zhua. What could a 2.5-year-old do? Here, little kitten Zhua was the youngest in the lower class. The other children were basically sent here when they were 3 years old. There were also children who were 2 or 3 months old who were sent here. The parents were either too busy or afraid that their children would lose at the starting line. When they saw other families sending their children to school, they hurriedly sent their children over. In fact, whether or not the children could go to kindergarten depended on the children. If they were too young, their minds would be weak and they wouldn't have the ability to take care of themselves. Sending them to kindergarten would not only tire the teachers but also make the children suffer. It might also make the children feel conflicted. As for little kitten Zhua, who was 6 months away from turning 3, his mental fortitude was strong enough. He also had the ability to take care of himself. He could eat, sleep, and poop by himself. He was much stronger than some 3 or 4-year-olds. Moreover, little kitten Zhua was the one who suggested that he go to kindergarten. On the first day of kindergarten, when the teacher finally calmed all the children down, the little guy howled, causing the other children who had finally stopped crying to cry again. For these children, it was too easy to cry when they were away from their parents for the first time. As for the initiator, little kitten Joie, when everyone was crying, he ran to the table in front of him and picked a big and good apple to sit by the side and eat. He didn't know who he learned it from. This little bastard was so bad. The children quickly stopped paying attention to what had just happened and began to play on their own. They had been in the classroom for a long time before. It was rare for them to come out and play, so they didn't care about those unimportant things. This was the difference between children and older children. The latter would continue to talk about what had just happened, while the former would forget about it. To them, the toys and slides in their hands were not as attractive as the toys in their hands. Little kitten Joie pushed the cart that he had just pieced together and prepared to continue playing. He placed the blocks on the ground into a circle, then added other blocks on top of this circle to form a cylinder. These blocks were not all square. There were also triangles, circles, trapezoids, and so on. This child was able to use these blocks of different shapes to make this cylinder very high and stable. After placing all the blocks on the ground, little kitten Joie pushed down the one that he had just pieced together and yawned. When he looked up at the tree and saw Zhang Tan, he immediately went over to Zhang Tan happily. Zhang Tan came down from the tree and stopped at a corner by the side, waiting for little kitten Joie to come over. Little kitten Joie was usually not very honest. He was also very obedient and had strong self-care skills. After handling his own matters, he would help other children. Because of this, little kitten Joie gave the teacher and other students a very good and positive impression. Only when he was with Zhang Tan would he talk a little more, and that would also reveal the little guy's thoughts that were different from his appearance. Brother hey, I just punished a bad guy. Little kitten Joie said, looking as if he was asking for praise. Bad guy? That guy? To be honest, that guy gave a good first impression. First of all, his appearance was too deceiving. He was good-looking, which would give him a lot of points. With a little self-expression, no one would think that there was something wrong with him. Zhang Tan believed in little kitten Joie. I saw him steal little Li's teddy bear. He even lied and said that he didn't see it. Little kitten Joie whispered the secret that she had discovered to Zhang Tan. The little Li that little kitten Joie was talking about was another child in the lower class. Zhang Tan did hear that a child here had lost something 2 days ago. It was a crystal pendant in the shape of a teddy bear. It was about 1,000 yuan. It was a gift from that child's relative. That child often took it out to show off. Unexpectedly, after he fell outside, he came back and found that the pendant was gone. When he ran to the place where he fell, he couldn't find the pendant. That parent even suspected the kindergarten teacher, but there were many children here with good conditions. There were a few who wore jade. In terms of value, those jade pendants were worth a lot. Why didn't he see anyone lose it? Why did your family lose it? They couldn't find anything and were worried that it would affect the other children. In the end, they could only leave it as it was. Now it seemed that the person who had picked up the pendant was that guy? After listening to little kitten Joie's whisper, Zhang Tan found out that little kitten Joie couldn't sleep that afternoon. She took the periscope that she had made out of children's toothpaste and 2 small lenses and saw it. The children in the kindergarten all slept here at noon. They didn't go home. Little Li woke up during lunch break to go to the toilet and fell. As for the periscope, there was a simple periscope, made out of cardboard and 2 lenses according to the principle of light reflection in the primary school's labor curriculum. Zhang Tan had seen some children play with it in the courtyard some time ago. It was the first time that Zhang Tan had seen someone as small as little kitten Joie. Every time he squats for a long time, he gets up and steps back. He steps back this much. Little kitten Joie gestured with her hands. In other words, this guy didn't place the marbles blindly. He placed them there after observing and measuring them. However, wasn't this observation skill used wrongly? However, he was still a child after all. He didn't think too far ahead and didn't want to tell the teacher or parents. He only thought of it as a small game for himself to have fun. As for why little kitten Joie didn't tell little Li about it, Zhang Tan heard little kitten Joie's tone just now. He didn't have a good impression of little Li, who had a loud voice, loved to show off, and wet the bed. He even put a bug on little Li's skirt, scaring her to tears. However, no one knew that it was little kitten Joie who put the bug. From the perspective of a parent, this was the time to educate him about what was right and wrong and what was the best way to do it. However, Zhang Tan didn't know how to do it and couldn't do it. He couldn't even speak, so how could he educate him? Little kitten Joie, is this your cat? A little girl came over and asked. Although little kitten Joie said that his name was Joyang, many children still like to call him little kitten Joie. Little kitten Joie shook his head. No, he's my brother. When the little girl heard the answer, her eyes widened. She said in disbelief, No wonder you're called little kitten Joie. Your brother is a cat. Can you become a cat? No. Oh. The little girl's face was full of disappointment. She looked sideways at Zhang Tan and reached out her white and tender little hand to pull Zhang Tan's beard. Zhang Tan dodged. Zhang Tan didn't have a good impression of these little brats. No matter how cute they could annoy people to death. They didn't know how to control their strength and cried easily. Therefore, he didn't plan to stay here any longer. He raised his hand at little kitten Joie. Little kitten Joie was about to say something to the little girl, but when she saw Zhang Tan's action, she quickly reached out and touched Zhang Tan's cat hand. Goodbye, brother He. Little kitten Joie waved at Zhang Tan's back and turned around to continue what she didn't say just now. She told the little girl not to pull Zhang Tan's beard in the future. Otherwise, brother He will be angry. After Zhang Tan left the kindergarten, he was still thinking about what little kitten Joie had said about the boy being a bad guy. It wasn't a good thing to keep such a person in the kindergarten. As he was thinking, he took a shortcut to pass by the school's hospital. Zhang Tan saw the boy and girl coming out of the school's hospital. The girl was the kindergarten teacher with the surname Bai, and the boy was the bad guy that little kitten Joie had mentioned. Now, the boy was walking uneasily. He probably had a bad fall. When they passed a fork in the road, the two separated. Teacher Bai went back to the kindergarten. Later, she had to supervise the children to eat lunch and sleep, so she couldn't leave. The man, on the other hand, took a different route. Chapter 262. The man did not leave through the main entrance. Instead, he left through a side door that led to the old street. At this time, the number of people on the road gradually increased. Some people who had set up stalls were busy occupying seats. The students of Tsinghua University, who only had 2 classes in the afternoon, had also finished their classes. They came out for a walk and to eat some snacks. Zhang Tan did not follow too closely. There were many people there. Many people did not pay attention to their feet when they walked. If he went over, his limbs and tail would probably be broken. Moreover, Zhang Tan could see the situation from the sidewalk. It was not worthwhile to take the risk and look for trouble. As he followed, Zhang Tan saw that the man's footsteps became faster. There was a small stall next to him. The stall was filled with accessories and gadgets. Girls liked them very much. There were many people around the stall. After the man passed by, Zhang Tan noticed that there was a woman's phone in his hand. After getting the phone, the man turned it off skillfully. He opened the back cover of the phone, took out the card, and threw it into the bin beside him. Then, he put the phone in his pocket. That technique was something that only a veteran could do. It was too fast and too natural. It was so natural that the student did not feel that he had lost his phone. The people around him also did not notice anything strange. If Zhang Tan had not seen the man steal the phone with his own eyes. After stealing the phone, the man's originally frowning and bitter face was now relaxed with a smile on his face. It was as if what had just happened had made him very happy and dispelled his original gloominess. Zhang Tan did not know if this person liked to use this method to vent his depression, or if it was because he had another profession, that he did something like stealing phones. No matter what, he was obviously not a good person. He was worse than what Zhuo Xiaomao had said. That's right. He even stole children's things. Stealing phones was nothing. Zhang Tan looked back. There were some people around the small stall selling accessories. He could not see if the person who lost the phone was among them. He guessed that the unlucky owner had not realized that he had lost his phone. The person in front had already walked a little far. Zhang Tan hurriedly followed. He couldn't do anything now. Zhang Tan was also familiar with the path that the people in front of him were taking. If they walked along the old street, they would not walk far before turning a corner and arriving at an old neighborhood. Although this neighborhood was old, it wasn't really that old. It was built in the 90s. It was all 6 or 7 stories high, and there were 5 or 6 households on each floor. However, from the outside of the community, one would feel that the community was old. The development of the city was too fast, and the architectural style was old-fashioned. Coupled with the newly built commercial streets and high-rise buildings not far from here, the feeling was even more obvious when standing at the fork in the road. Behind these old-fashioned community buildings, towering modern buildings looked down on everything like giants, which made this place even more old-fashioned. Sometimes, it even gave people a feeling of time and space being intertwined. Most of the people who lived in this old community were old men and women. There were also some young people who worked nearby. Zhang Tan watched the man enter the community. He quickly jumped into a closed side door at the side. After looking for a while, he continued to follow the man after seeing him. When he was shopping on the old street, he had also visited several communities. This was one of them. He was neither familiar nor unfamiliar with it. In Zhang Tan's memory, the buildings here were easy to climb. When he walked in, he could hear the sound of mahjong coming from many rooms on the first floor. The old men and women gathered together to play mahjong every day when they had nothing to do. Therefore, most of the rooms on the first floor were tea house, like entertainment places. A mixed fur little Pekingese barked at Zhang Tan a few times after seeing him. Not far away, a white puppy lying on the side of the road twitched its ears and glanced over. Then, it lay down lazily again. It was not interested in Zhang Tan at all. There were many puppies and cats in this community. When the cats moved, it was really one after another. Because cats were so common, whether it was humans or animals, seeing Zhang Tan was not strange at all. Many people did not even bother to look at him. The man in front seemed to be familiar with the barking of dogs in the community. After hearing it, he did not look back at all. He continued to walk forward, talking on the phone as he walked. Zhang Tan heard him complaining to the person on the other end of the phone about today's bad luck. His tone was very disgusted with the children in the kindergarten. He even cursed a few times viciously. This made Zhang Tan very unhappy. After all, this person was scolding Zhua Kitten. People's hearts were biased. Zhang Tan was biased and righteous. Moreover, this person's character was problematic. Those little bastards, if they don't get beaten up for a day, they will make a scene. F***CK, they are asking for a beating. The person in front was still complaining, but after walking into the corridor of a building, his emotions were restrained a lot. The building was very quiet. If he opened his mouth and scolded, he wouldn't be able to get a good look from the people around him. Zhang Tan followed him in. There was an iron door at the stairs, but it seemed that it had not been closed for a long time. The people who lived here probably thought it was too troublesome to close, so the iron door at the entrance of the building was empty. The man lived on the third floor. Zhang Tan watched the man take out the key to open the door and go in. Before closing the door, Zhang Tan heard the man talk about where to go on Friday night. Zhang Tan did not stay there for long. After finding out where the man lived, Zhang Tan went downstairs and walked around the residential building before leaving. For the next 2 days, Zhang Tan walked around the kindergarten every day, but he did not see the man. There were only a few female teachers in the class. Looking at the children wearing paper rooster hats and singing, "Big Rooster Ooh, ooh," with the teachers, Zhang Tan turned and left. He could not appreciate these children's songs. He always felt that if he stayed here for too long, he would be assimilated by these little kids and become childish. On Friday night, Zhang Tan went out to the residential building after dinner. Since the man said that he was going to play on Friday night, he should not be at home. Zhang Tan decided to go to his house and cause some trouble. The consequences of offending a cat were very serious. When he arrived at the residential building, there were not many people walking around at night. Many elderly people went to bed early and did not have the energy to play mahjong at night. They stayed at home and watched TV. Basically, they fell asleep around 9 o'clock. There were no streetlights around, only some lights coming from the resident houses. It was not very dark, but there were many blind spots. It was not difficult to see what was happening in the shadows. Zhang Tan looked around, found a place, and climbed up along the corner. The two households directly below the man's house had installed a shelter outside. One was for the outdoor air conditioner unit to block the rain, and the other was to prevent water from dripping down when the residents above were drying their clothes. Many households would install such a shelter outside their windowsills, and it was convenient for Zhang Tan to use the shelter as well. When Zhang Tan climbed up, he would use these shelters. If someone passed by, Zhang Tan would hide on the shelter. Although it was not very bright here, people close to Zhang Tan could still find him. It was not late at night, and there were still many young people walking around. When he climbed past the second floor, Zhang Tan heard someone approaching, so he quickly climbed up. Damn! What a big gecko! Hee hee. It's black, and it has cat ears. A voice came from below. Zhang Tan. Obviously, that person had found out about Zhang Tan. At the same time, fortunately, that person was not very sober. Nonsense, I'm not drunk. I'm sober. Ugh. Zhang Tan hid on the shelter on the second floor and listened to the vomiting sound below. Fortunately, this person was drunk. Otherwise it would be troublesome, but not too troublesome. After all, Zhang Tan was just a cat. A cat climbing a wall. It was not a supernatural event. After the drunkard vomited, he staggered away, and his phone fell into the pile of vomit. The drunkard did not realize that he had dropped his phone. No one passed by, so Zhang Tan quickly climbed up and climbed into the window on the third floor. Fortunately, the iron bars were not close together. The distance between two iron bars was just enough for Zhang Tan to squeeze in. Perhaps because of the iron bars, although there was no one inside, the window on the third floor was not locked. They probably thought that no one would enter through there. Zhang Tan looked around. At this time, it seemed that many people had gone out for a walk. The people in the residential building opposite would not pay attention to this side. Even if they looked, they would not notice Zhang Tan. There was no light on the windowsill, and it was very dark. People could not see Zhang Tan in the dark with their vision. After opening the window, Zhang Tan looked inside. Based on the smell, this room was that man's. The room was not as messy as Zhang Tan imagined. There was a familiar smell left behind by the kindergarten's teacher Little Bai. The two of them were a couple, but teacher Little Bai did not live here. She should have been here this afternoon to tidy up the room for that person. There were too many obstacles. Zhang Tan decided to look at the room from above before deciding where to start messing around. Jumping from the bookcase to the wooden wardrobe next to it, Zhang Tan was about to look down when he found a key on the wardrobe. This key looked like it was used often. It was not rusty, and there was no dust on the key. There was a layer of dust around the key. The person who cleaned it did not take care of the wardrobe. Therefore, the contrast was very obvious. The smell left on the key proved that the man had used this key not long ago, but teacher Littleby had not touched it. A key that was used often was placed on the high wardrobe. Why? There was obviously something wrong. Zhang Tan looked at the other furnishings in the room. He jumped down and tried the locked drawers and cabinets. The others could be opened directly. Only two were locked. One was the small cabinet under the bookcase, and the other was the bedside table. He looked at the keyhole. They were similar. Zhang Tan took out the key and gave it a try. The bookcase opened. The cabinet was filled with mobile phones. One of them was the stolen pink mobile phone that Zhang Tan had seen 2 days ago. Looking at the 6 mobile phones in the cabinet, there were 2 women's mobile phones, 3 men's mobile phones, and one of them was more gender neutral. It was used by both men and women. The 6 mobile phones were of different ages, and the price difference was very big. One of the mobile phones could be considered a thief's mobile phone in this era. There were also 2 mobile phones that looked more high-end. They could be sold for 2,000 to 3,000 yuan. These mobile phones should have been stolen by that person. In addition to the mobile phones in the cabinet, there was also a box with a SIM card in it. In Tsinghua University, there were many street vendors and retail agents selling SIM cards that did not require the buyer to show his or her ID card. The ones here should be similar. If these mobile phones were missing, would that man be angry when he came back? Chapter 263. Zhang Tan looked at his cat paw and then at the phones in the cupboard. Finally, his eyes fell on a flip phone for men. The screen of the phone was considered big for this era, and the buttons were relatively big, making it easier to use. Zhang Tan put the phone aside and the pink phone aside. He opened the box with the SIM card and took out 2 SIM cards. There was no bag in the room, so Zhang Tan went to the door and listened carefully. After confirming that there was no one in the room and no one outside, he jumped up, opened the door, and went out. The house had 2 bedrooms and 1 living room. It was not big. The other room was empty, and there was some gym equipment. Zhang Tan walked around and found a clean bag. He put the flip phone, the pink phone, and the 2 SIM cards in it. He tied the bag and went back to the room to deal with the rest of the phones and SIM cards. During the process, Zhang Tan went through a few drawers, but he did not find the missing pendant that Zhua Kitten had mentioned. It had probably been sold, or it was hidden in a hidden place. Zhang Tan did not find it. Zhang Tan did not know where the phones were stolen or who the owner was. He did not care about that. He was too lazy to pay attention to unrelated people. As for the owner of the pink phone, Zhang Tan was just going to help him out. After she was done, Zhang Tan was just about to jump out of the window when she suddenly stopped. She ran to grab some tissues to wipe away some of the traces, such as the places with obvious cat paw prints and the dusty wardrobe. Although she did not do it very carefully, as long as she could get rid of the cat's traces, everything would be fine. Zhang Tan threw the key to the cupboard into the toilet hole. The cupboard was locked again by Zhang Tan, leaving the man to worry about. After walking around twice to make sure that his footprints were gone, Zhang Tan went out the window with the bag with the phone and SIM card in his mouth. As for the remaining traces in the room, based on those alone, it was impossible to suspect that a cat was the culprit. It was easy to climb up, but difficult to climb down. It was not easy for Zhang Tan to climb down from the window. After moving some distance on the wall, he jumped onto the shelter outside the window on the second floor. Although this residential area was relatively old, the shelter was still quite sturdy. When he landed on the awning, there was a loud bang. The sound was not loud, but the people in the house must have heard it. However, when they opened the window to look out, Zhang Tan had already jumped from the second floor to the first floor. He landed on the ground and found a place to hide. Hiding behind the bushes, Zhang Tan heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the window on the second floor was closed again. After a while, Zhang Tan left with the bag in his mouth. There were many places that the lights could not reach at night. Although he had to take some detours, in order to hide his tracks, Zhang Tan could only take the longer route. When he arrived at Tsinghua University, Zhang Tan jumped over the wall near the side door. He opened the bag from the greenery and dialed the pink phone to the guardroom when no one was paying attention. The phone was right in front of the guardroom's steps. Zhang Tan looked at it for a while until a guard saw it and picked it up. He asked the students passing by and picked it up. After he failed to find it, he picked up a pen and wrote "Lost and Found" on the notice board. Only then did Zhang Tan leave. The quality of the guards at Tsinghua University was not bad. After that, Zhang Tan did not go home directly. Instead, he went to the forest near the freshman dormitory. 2 years ago, when the freshman dormitory had not been built, that place was very remote. Almost no one walked around at night. There were many thick trees in the forest. Zhang Tan remembered that when he used to train there, he saw a hole in a tree. In the past, Zhang Tan had placed his cat tag in that tree hole. Thinking about it, he had not walked there for a while. Ever since the freshman dormitories were built and the freshmen moved in, Zhang Tan did not walk there much. Today, it was a good opportunity for him to go there and take a look. Even though after the new student dormitory was built, the secluded area of the campus had gotten a little more lively, but it was only a little. There were students walking around the forest area at night, and there were some students having sex in the small forest. However, there were not that many people, so it was not difficult for Zhang Tan to avoid them. There was no one around the tree hole. Zhang Tan jumped up the tree and looked at the tree hole. There was a pile of rotten leaves. The last time Zhang Tan came here, he had filled it with branches, leaves, and a plastic board to prevent other animals from occupying it. Now, it seemed that it was not a good idea. There were worms growing in the rotten leaves. Zhang Tan broke off a branch and dug out the things inside. It was very wet and there were many small worms crawling around. However, Zhang Tan could not think of a better way to deal with it. He could only put up with it for now and think of a way tomorrow. After digging out the tree hole, Zhang Tan put the bag with the mobile phone and SIM card inside. Although there were many places in the old tiled house where Zhang Tan could hide his mobile phone without worrying about the wind and rain, there was no telling when someone would go in there. As for the tree hole here, it seemed that only birds and cats could come in, and normal birds and cats were not as interested in the mobile phone as Zhang Tan. After thinking about it, Zhang Tan still felt that the tree hole was safer and more stable. Stealing a mobile phone from a thief, would that be considered a double cross? Who cares? Zhang Tan shook his head. He had never been a person of integrity. After opening the bag, Zhang Tan turned on the mobile phone and put it on silent mode. He opened a racing game on the mobile phone and started playing. Zhang Tan had not touched a mobile phone for a long time. Even if it was a game with rough graphics, he could still play it happily. No one would have thought that at this time, on a tree in the forest at the edge of Tsinghua University's campus, a cat was hiding in a tree hole and playing with a mobile phone. After about half an hour, the mobile phone showed that it was almost out of battery. Zhang Tan reluctantly turned off the mobile phone. There was no SIM card installed in the mobile phone. He looked at the 2 SIM cards in the bag and forgot to install them when he was playing games. Forget it, he would think about it later. Zhang Tan opened the back cover of the mobile phone with some effort and took out the battery. He would take it back and use Zhao Ma's universal charger tomorrow when there was no one at home. After taking out the battery, he put the mobile phone and the 2 SIM cards into the bag. After tying the bag, Zhang Tan looked at the battery. It was not a good idea to bite the battery. Not to mention the toxicity of the battery. Zhang Tan remembered the conversation between Zhao Pa and Zhao Yuan a while ago. Many students in Zhao Yuan's class ran out of battery when they used some electronic products. They were too lazy to buy a new one, so they just used it and bit it to dig out the battery's remaining energy. That was why there were many discarded batteries in Zhao Yuan's school with bite marks. A few days ago, there was news about a little girl who was injured by a battery because she bit it. According to the newspaper, an expert's explanation was that batteries contained chemicals. If saliva entered the battery when biting into the battery, it could cause the battery to short-circuit and explode. This was especially true for counterfeit products and low-quality batteries. It was very likely that accidents would occur because of the quality of the batteries could not be guaranteed. The batteries that students usually used were number 5 or number 7 batteries with zinc shells. Zhang Tan did not know about the battery of the mobile phone, but he did not dare to take the risk. He still cherished his cat's life. Zhang Tan was semi-illiterate when it came to academic knowledge. He did not understand and was not interested in learning more about it. He just needed to listen to Zhao Pa and Zhao Ma. It was simple, convenient, and did not need to use his brain. Therefore, to be safe, Zhang Tan ran to the vendors outside the side door to pick up the bags. After the number of students increased, there were some vendors outside the side door in the evening and at night. When the vendor saw Zhang Tan pick up a plastic bag from the stall, he thought that the cat was just playing with it for fun. There were many cats who liked to play with plastic bags, and plastic bags were not worth much. Therefore, he did not pay much attention to Zhang Tan. Instead, he paid more attention to the passing students. After putting the battery into a clean plastic bag, Zhang Tan took the plastic bag back to the house. He hid the battery in a corner of the courtyard, went upstairs, brushed his teeth, and took a shower. He had taken a lot of plastic bags today, so he needed to brush his teeth more. The electric toothbrush that Zhao Ma had bought for him was not bad. The next day, when no one was home, Zhang Tan took the bag with the battery home and used Zhao Ma's all-purpose charger to charge it. In order to charge the battery more, Zhang Tan stayed at home in the morning and afternoon. At the same time, he found a bag in the clutter. This was Zhao Ma's change bag. It had not been used for a long time, so she probably forgot about it. Zhang Tan took the bag out, washed it under the faucet, and put it on the balcony to dry. The size of the change bag was just right for the flip phone. The strap was just right for Zhang Tan's neck, so he did not have to lift it with his teeth. After everything was ready, Zhang Tan found an opportunity to go back to the tree hole. He installed the battery and tried the 2 SIM cards. He also tried to check the phone bill. One of the cards had no money left, and the other only had a few yuan left. After installing the card that still had the phone bill, Zhang Tan thought about the man's phone number. Yesterday, when Zhang Tan went to the kindergarten, teacher Little Bai was calling the man. After she finished the call, she put the phone on the desk to look after the other children. Zhang Tan checked the call log. It showed that the number was Dear. Zhang Tan memorized the number. At the same time, in the old residential area, Zhang Dong was complaining on the phone. In the morning, when I was changing my shoes, I found a few SIM cards in my shoes. I hurriedly went to the closet to change into a suit. When I went out to take the bus, I took out a few SIM cards from my pocket. When I went home to cook noodles in the kitchen, I opened the cupboard and found a phone inside. I ran to drink some water to calm myself down. When I opened the cupboard under the coffee table in the living room, I found another phone inside. F***CK. Phone. SIM card. SIM card. SIM card. I'm going crazy. Who the F***CK is playing with me? Zhang Dong felt that the intruder was a skilled thief, but why didn't he take the phone away? Instead, he stuffed things everywhere as if he was playing a game. Zhang Dong checked the door lock and windows, but he could not find any clues. He did not have any investigative skills, so he did not dare to say anything. If outsiders found out, he would not have a good time. If his colleagues found out, he would not have the face to do so. He could only talk to his close friends who usually hung out with him to talk about it. As he was talking, his phone received a text message. After seeing the number displayed on the phone, Zhang Dong's hand trembled. Suddenly, a chill ran down his spine. After he found out that his bedroom had been visited by a thief who was more skilled than him, he counted all the SIM cards he found in the room and marked out the ones that he could not find. At this time, the phone number displayed on the screen was one of the SIM cards that he had not found. This number was also one that he had used before. Because there were 4 sixes in this number, it left a deep impression on him. Taking a deep breath, Zhang Dong opened the message that he had just received. It showed. Chapter 264. Zhang Dong's first reaction when he saw the message was to throw the phone away. However, he remembered that the phone in his hand was worth a lot of money. His arm that was about to throw the phone stopped abruptly. After taking a few deep breaths, Zhang Dong calmed himself down a little. If the other party had stolen the phone and left, Zhang Dong would have accepted it. The other party was too skilled and he would have admitted defeat. If the other party played him and hid the phone and SIM card everywhere as a prank, Zhang Dong would have thought that the other party was just looking for fun. Now, the other party had sent a message. Although it was only 3 words, it was full of ridicule. Zhang Dong felt like he had been slapped in the face and then punched in the face. Obviously, the other party had no intention of stopping. Zhang Dong was now worried that the other party would come here again, or even target him and do something that could threaten his life. The more Zhang Dong thought about it, the more anxious he became. After all, there were many things that he did that could not see the light of day. Even if he deliberately ignored it at the time, once something happened, his negative emotions would soar. Staring at the screen, Zhang Dong scratched his head and pressed the call button. After all, guesses were just guesses. Zhang Dong wanted to talk to the other party directly, even if it meant sacrificing some benefits. However, after dialing, Zhang Dong heard the standard voice on the phone. He was so angry that he almost threw the phone away. The other party's phone was turned off and he could not get through. After walking around the house a few times, Zhang Dong decided to temporarily move to another place. Even if he could not provoke him, he could still hide. Therefore, he immediately called someone to rent another place and packed his luggage and left on the same day. Compared to Zhang Dong's doubts and anxiety, Zhang Tan was doing well. After sending the message, he turned off his phone. He did not want to waste too much time talking, and he also wanted to save electricity. The phone was indeed a very convenient thing. He could communicate with others without knowing who the other party was. Since he could not use the computer, using the phone was not a bad idea. However, when he thought about the information about the balance of the phone bill, Zhang Tan was troubled again. Topping up the phone bill was a very simple matter for others. It did not matter if they went to the business hall or asked someone to do it for them. However, for Zhang Tan, this was a technical problem. How could he top up the phone without anyone knowing or seeing Zhang Tan? Money. Zhang Tan did. Zhang Tan knew where Little Pomelo, Jiao Yuan, Jiao Ma, and Jiao Pa's bank card were, but he did not want to touch their money. You could call him stupid, stubborn or stubborn, but Zhang Tan would never steal Jiao Ma's money to top up his phone bill. Even though he had already planned to give the money in the card to the Jiao family, Zhang Tan felt that it was a different matter altogether. Zhang Tan could do it to Zhang Dong or someone he didn't know, but he couldn't get over the fact that it was someone from the Jiao family. When he got home, he opened the drawer of the cat tree and looked at the cards inside. There was a lot of money in the cards. Zhang Tan once saw the Jiao Pa register for online banking. Zhang Tan was shocked when he logged in to check the balance. Unfortunately, no matter how many zeros there were on the card, Zhang Tan could not get a dime. It was not that the Jiao Pa had moved the money out, but Zhang Tan could not withdraw the money at all. There were cameras at the ATM. He did not see anyone using a bank card to top up the phone bill nearby. If there was someone using a bank card to top up the phone bill, Zhang Tan could sneak over when no one was around to top up the phone bill. Ask someone to help? Zhang Tan did not want to do that. He still wanted to use this phone number for other things. Therefore, the fewer people who knew about it, the better. What should he do? Zhang Tan leaned on the balcony and pondered. There was a chattering sound coming from the 4th floor. It was the B*TCH bird on the 4th floor cultivating artistic sentiments. At this moment, General was drawing with a pen in its mouth. In order to prevent General from going out and harming others, its owner had taught it a few more things. Among them, drawing was something that General was interested in. Every day, it would draw with a pen in its mouth when it had nothing to do. Its owner, Professor Tan, had even specially bought a drawing board, and the pens used were also environmentally friendly. This could not only distract it so that it would not go out and attract hatred, but also make it shut up. Its learning ability was so strong that its mouth was getting worse and worse. If its mouth was not sealed, it could anger people to death. The people of the Academy of Economic Sciences were still being laughed at by other schools. General's information had also been dug out by everyone. However, it was also said that someone from the Academy of Economic Sciences had made an animated GIF based on General's original appearance. It had been downloaded quite a lot on the internet. Even Professor Tan's GIF was in it. Zhang Tan poked his head out from the balcony and looked at General's drawing. He did not know what it was drawing. It was probably abstract. After drawing, General tilted its head and looked at it. Then it raised its big paw and grabbed the eraser next to it. It wiped the drawing on the drawing board and continued its artistic career. Looking at General drawing with a pen in its mouth, Zhang Tan suddenly thought that he could also write and draw. He could try to find someone to pay for his phone in this way, but there was a certain risk in it. In order to solve the technical problem of recharging the phone, the first thing was to have cash. Zhang Tan could not think about online payment at this stage. How could he get cash, and how could he get cash through legal means? On this day, Zhang Tan went to Xiaogua's place to shoot a new promotional advertisement. Xiaogua's store attracted customers not only with the pet products, but also with the promotional videos that Xiaogua released on time on the Pet Center's website. Every time it was the release date, a large number of Pet Center customers and netizens would wait in front of the computer. Then they would share the videos on some video websites or take screenshots to discuss in the forum to attract attention. This time, Zhang Tan's prop was a small backpack. This time, he was dressed as a mountain climber. However, during the shooting, the other cats were not in a good mood. They were not very cooperative during the shooting, so it took a long time. The short video that was supposed to be finished by 2 in the afternoon was not finished by 3. Zhang Tan was quite impatient. Xiaogua was worried and asked his subordinates to comfort the other cats. As for Zhang Tan, black charcoal, let's talk about it. Can we hold on for 1 more hour? Xiaogua looked at Zhang Tan. After working together for so long, Xiaogua also knew how to communicate with this cat. Zhang Tan ignored him. It was lying on the side with its eyes half closed, thinking about how to get cash. It was too lazy to talk to Xiaogua in front of it. Xiaogua talked for a long time but still did not get a response. He was ready to take out a cigarette and go out to smoke. When he reached into his pocket, he found that there was a $50 bill in his pocket. On a whim, he took out the bill and waved it in front of Zhang Tan. Let's hold on for 1 more hour. This is your overtime pay. Originally, Xiaogua was just joking. After waving the bill in his hand, he was going to put it in his pocket and go out to smoke. Unexpectedly, the cat, who was too lazy to even lift its eyelids, immediately stood up and was full of energy. Xiaogua was speechless. He felt that the cat's eyes were shining when it saw the bill. After 2 seconds, Xiaogua took out the bill that was half in his pocket and waved it slowly in front of the cat. Then, he looked at the cat in front of him, whose eyes followed the bill. Holy *T. It was so effective. Xiaogua had always directly transferred Zhang Tan's remuneration to his card, but Xiaogua did not expect that the effect of cash would be so good. If he knew that it could stimulate the cat's work attitude, he would have taken it out directly. However, had this happened before? Xiaogua shook his head. It did not happen in his memory. He did not know if it had never happened before or if it had forgotten. Black charcoal. Xiaogua folded the bill and stuffed it into Zhang Tan's small backpack. The overtime pay is yours. Let's get to work? Let's get to work. The cash problem was solved. Zhang Tan was now in a good mood. The other cats were now calmer because of the staff's comfort. Therefore, when everyone was very cooperative, Zhang Tan worked very hard in the remaining time. It was very cooperative and very patient. It was not like before, when it saw other cats make mistakes, it could not wait to slap them. Xiaogua held his chin and looked at the shooting. He thought that if he had to work overtime in the future, he would solve it with cash. Anyway, 50 yuan was really nothing to him now. It was a good deal to make the cat cooperate so well. After the shooting, Zhang Tan did not take off the backpack prop. Xiaogua did not say that he wanted it, so he let Zhang Tan carry it back. After returning home, Jiao Yuan wanted to see Zhang Tan's small backpack, but Zhang Tan did not give it to him. He decided that he would carry it when he went to the pet center in the future. Now that he had the cash, the only thing left was how to top up the phone with the 50 yuan. Originally, Zhang Tan wanted to write a note and leave it with the cash at the place for topping up the phone. However, Zhang Tan found another way to top up the phone when he was walking around. There was a newsstand on the road to the student dormitory. Zhang Tan observed there for a few days. He found that every afternoon around 3 o'clock, the auntie at the newsstand would lie down and sleep there. She was not afraid that someone would steal the newspaper. The overall quality of the students here was relatively high, and the school was much safer than outside. She did not have to worry about other accidents. Even if a student went to buy the newspaper or a card, she could just wake him up. Zhang Tan's black wallet was around his neck. He did not have his phone with him. The wallet was filled with the 50 yuan cash. After the auntie at the newsstand lay down and fell asleep, Zhang Tan put the wallet behind the bushes and jumped into the newsstand with the 50 yuan in his mouth. He had become more and more used to carrying things in his mouth. At this moment, there was no one around, and there were no cameras. After jumping in, Zhang Tan looked at the person lying down and sleeping. She was still asleep, and he could hear a light snoring sound. He had decided to take action here because he was sure that the auntie was sleeping soundly. The box for topping up the card was placed on a cabinet below the window. The box for topping up the card was not tightly closed. There were probably too many people here to buy the card, so she was too lazy to close it. Zhang Tan put the money in a box for change. Zhang Tan did not see the large bills, so he guessed that they were hidden. Then, Zhang Tan came to the card box and found a card with a face value of $50. She held it in her mouth and listened to the movements on the road outside before quickly leaving. Hiding behind the bushes, Zhang Tan looked at the newsstand. The auntie was still sleeping. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. He put the card into the black wallet, zipped it up, and ran to the forest with his bag. Hiding in the tree hole, Zhang Tan entered the card number and password according to the voice prompts on the phone. When the phone received a message saying that the top-up was successful and the balance was in the card, Zhang Tan was filled with emotions. It was just topping up the phone, but it was so troublesome. Chapter 265. Zhang Tan went to the old residential area again and found that Zhang Dong had moved away. He was quite dispirited. He planned to play the man one more time, but he did not expect that the man would be so scared that he would run away. However, since that person left, did he change his phone number? Zhang Tan dialed that number and found that the other person's original number was no longer connected. That person was really thorough. How could he run away like that? Zhang Tan went to the kindergarten once a day and found an opportunity to look through teacher Xiao Bai's phone and record Zhang Dong's new number. This time, Zhang Tan didn't immediately send a message to scare him. That person would definitely change his number. Zhang Tan was too lazy to bother, so he wrote down the number first. If that person was caught doing bad things by Zhang Tan again, he would teach him a lesson. Zhang Tan could only find his own entertainment now. He didn't expect to do anything earth-shattering as a cat. That way, even if he had a few lives, it wouldn't be enough. Not to mention that people's hearts were sinister and their intelligence wasn't high. Even the law wouldn't protect them. Zhang Tan wasn't willing to entrust his life to morality. The tree hole where the phone was hidden was much drier now. Perhaps it was because of the season, but the weather was much drier now. It also saved Zhang Tan some trouble. On this day, Zhang Tan went to the overpass for a walk. Recently, that blind old man Elder Kuan didn't play the eru on the overpass. At first, Zhang Tan thought that the old man was sick. At his age, he didn't do anything but play the eru on the overpass. It was very likely that he was sick. However, once he met Xiao Jiao, he heard from her that Elder Kuan was just looking for an old friend and would be back in a few days. Since Elder Kuan wasn't around, there were fewer peddlers on the bridge. When Zhang Tan passed by the bridge, she heard a few peddlers who were stationed there complaining. They had been nervous about setting up their stalls on the bridge, afraid that the city enforcement officers would come. Some of the peddlers even changed locations and waited for Blind to come back. Zhang Tan also went to the construction site to take a look. It shouldn't be called a construction site. It should be called Henggu Plaza now. Although it wasn't completely open yet, there were already some shops open for business. There weren't many people at the moment, but that might not be the case in a while. Looking at the Henggu Square that changed every day, Zhang Tan sighed. That time really passed quickly. He heard that Yi Hao and the others would set up a clubhouse similar to the night building here. When the time came, Zhang Tan would be able to go there often, so he wouldn't have to hitchhike every time he went to the night building. However, a clubhouse built here would definitely not be as good as the night building. After all, the main consumers here were students, not white-collar workers and social elites who were already working. It didn't matter, as long as there was a place to kill time. Zhang Tan jumped onto a residential building and looked at the Hengwu Plaza. He was thinking about bringing his phone over tonight to take a photo as a souvenir. That night, after dinner, Zhang Tan picked up his new backpack and walked out of the house with light steps. In the living room, Jiao Ma looked at Zhang Tan's back and said to Jiao Pa, who was watching the news on the sofa, "Why do you think Black Charcoal is carrying a backpack every night? Does it really like that backpack?" "Sigh, if I had known, I would have bought a few more backpacks for it. When I bought clothes for it, it didn't wear them. I thought it didn't like those things because they were awkward on its body. It turns out that it likes backpacks more than clothes." The last time she saw her cat carrying a small backpack, it changed to a bigger one after a few days. It seemed that it really liked backpacks. The new backpack looked really good. Well, when she was free, she would make one for it so that it could take turns carrying it. "Sigh, speaking of which, if we let it go out like this, will it become even wilder?" Jiao Ma was worried. Jiao Pa didn't even look up when he heard that. He was still watching the TV and said, "Give it some privacy." Jiao Ma opened her mouth but didn't say anything. She took the dishes on the table and went to the kitchen to wash them. Zhang Tan's new backpack was completely black. At first glance, it wasn't easy to tell that it was a vest. There was a zipper on both sides of the backpack, and it just so happened that it could fit the flip phone. Zhang Tan went straight to the backpack after he saw it in the pet center. Xiaogu didn't say anything when he saw it, and tacitly agreed. With the new backpack, Zhang Tan could carry his phone when he went out. The backpack was more convenient than a wallet. Carrying the backpack was like wearing a vest, and it was easier to move around. Tonight, Zhang Tan planned to go to Hengwu Plaza to take photos. There were very few people who could notice Zhang Tan at night. Even if they did, they wouldn't take it seriously. When they saw Zhang Tan's backpack, they would just think that it was a pet costume that someone bought for their pet. They wouldn't think too much about it. There were many pets around. When he arrived at Hengwu Plaza, Zhang Tan found a suitable place to take photos. On the other side of Hengwu Plaza, lights flashed on the edges of the buildings of different heights. 2 years ago, this place was an abandoned construction site that no one dared to approach. However, he had overestimated the effect of mobile phones at this time. Although the price of this flip phone was relatively high in the market, it wasn't a high-end model. After he took a photo, Zhang Tan felt his balls ache when he saw it, and directly deleted it. Really, he had planned to take a photo and walk the artistic route to keep memories. It seemed that the artistic route wasn't something that could be done at any time. Walking out from the other side of Hengwu Plaza, Zhang Tan looked at the several roads that had been opened. Recently, he had become familiar with this place. He wondered if he should go to other places. Even if he couldn't take photos, it would be good to experience the city at night. It wasn't far from Hengwu Plaza to the bustling commercial street. After the construction site was completed and the roads were opened, the roads here would gradually become more prosperous. After leaving Hengwu Plaza, Zhang Tan didn't plan to continue walking to the commercial street. Just as he was about to turn around and go to another place, Zhang Tan saw a familiar person. That person was Zhang Dong, who had been scared by Zhang Tan and had moved away. Beside Zhang Dong was a very innocent girl. Zhang Dong didn't know what Zhang Dong said, but it made the girl cover her mouth and laugh. Some of the actions between the two were also intimate. According to Zhang Tan's knowledge, Zhang Dong and teacher Xiao Bai didn't seem to have broken up. Teacher Xiao Bai was still the same as usual. Her emotions didn't fluctuate. Sometimes, she would even text Zhang Dong, and her eyes were filled with the sweetness of love. In that case, Zhang Dong, this guy, was two-timing. Damn it, he bumped into me again. Zhang Tan followed the two men to the business district through the green path. In addition to some shops, supermarkets, and entertainment venues, there was also a residential area. Zhang Dong and the girl walked into a residential area. Zhang Tan followed, but he didn't walk through the main door. Instead, he climbed over the wall. There were a few security guards at the entrance. Although they might not be able to pay much attention to a cat, Zhang Tan felt that it was better to be discreet when following someone. After the two people came to a building, Zhang Dong didn't follow them in. The two of them talked downstairs, as if they were reluctant to part. Listening to their conversation, Zhang Tan knew that the girl lived with her parents. Zhang Dong's new apartment was also in this residential area. However, the two of them didn't live in the same building. They had only known each other for a few days, but their relationship had developed quickly. Zhang Tan hid behind the flower bed and took out his phone from his backpack. He turned off the flash and the sound of the camera, adjusted the focus, and took a picture. The picture was a little blurry, and he needed to identify it carefully. After taking a few pictures, Zhang Tan was still not satisfied. The camera quality of a phone these days was really bad. After the two of them were done being lovey-dovey, the girl went into the building. Only then did Zhang Dong reluctantly walk to another building. Zhang Tan took a few more pictures of the surroundings and took a picture of the name of the residential area. Then, he chose a few pictures and sent them to teacher Xiao Bai. Zhang Tan knew teacher Xiao Bai's phone number from the children in kindergarten. Once, Zhang Tan went to see Zhua Kitten play tricks on people. That lousy child tricked a child from the upper class into memorizing a bank card number. In the end, the child couldn't memorize it, so he replaced it with a phone number. The child who was tricked even proudly memorized the landlines and cell phone numbers of his family and relatives. One of them was teacher Xiao Bai's. After memorizing it, he swore that he would memorize the bank card number when he went back. If Zhua Yang from the lower class could memorize it, why couldn't they, the upper class, do the same? However, was that lousy child Zhua Kitten memorizing a bank card number? That was obviously pi. Children at this age didn't understand the kind of numbers with decimals, and the numbers were obviously wrong. They didn't even understand the meaning of bank cards. They were just competing with each other. Everything else wasn't important to them at all. At that time, other than the children who were tricked by Zhua Kitten, there were also children around who were fighting to memorize phone numbers. Among them, Zhang Tan heard teacher Xiao Bai's phone number several times. He also saw it when he flipped through her phone. After thinking for a while, Zhang Tan entered the phone number and sent the picture over. At night, teacher Xiao Bai was at home preparing for tomorrow's class. Suddenly, her phone received a message. At this time, she thought it was her boyfriend, Zhang Dong. She didn't expect it to be an unknown number with a picture. She had received similar messages before. Usually, they were advertisements or other spam messages, so she planned to delete them. However, when her finger was on the delete button, she stopped. After thinking for a while, she moved her finger and opened it. Previously, the phone number that sent the picture messages and some scams was not this kind of phone number. Therefore, she decided to open it and try it. At most, she would just deduct more money from the phone bill. What shocked her was the content of the message. The picture taken at night wasn't very clear to begin with. After the appropriate compression, it was even more blurry. However, although the picture was blurry, teacher Xiao Bai still knew the person she had been with for so long. She could recognize from the picture that the man in the picture was the boyfriend she was with now, the one who called her dear every day in text messages. As for the woman in the picture, she didn't know her at all. There were several pictures. 2 of them were holding hands, and 2 of them were hugging. Even if they didn't do anything further, looking at the way they interacted, they were definitely not ordinary relatives and friends. Zhang Tan also very considerately entered a few words to explain which neighborhood, the approximate time, what Zhang Dong was doing with the girl in which building, when they went shopping and so on. The pictures and words were like a basin of water with ice dregs that poured over teacher Xiao Bai from head to toe. Zhang Tan didn't know how teacher Xiao Bai would react after seeing the message. He even thought that teacher Xiao Bai would delete the message without looking at it. When he went to the kindergarten the next day and saw teacher Xiao Bai's state, Zhang Tan knew that she had seen it. Furthermore, her mood was a little off. Her face was pale, and even when she smiled at the children, it was obvious that she was forcing herself. Seeing teacher Xiao Bai's state, Zhang Tan was a little doubtful if his actions were appropriate. After thinking about not caring about this matter in the future and letting them develop on their own, Zhang Tan went to the tree hole and turned on his phone. He didn't expect to receive a message the moment he opened it. It was sent around midnight yesterday, and it was from teacher Xiao Bai. Who are you? 2 a.m. Can you help me? Chapter 266. To catch a thief, you have to catch the stolen goods. To catch an adulterer, you have to catch a couple. Just a few blurry photos were not very convincing. Zhang Tan estimated that Zhang Dong would definitely use flowery words to cover it up. However, looking at teacher Xiao Bai, she would not be easily fooled this time. At her age, she was in a relationship with the intention of getting married. When encountering this kind of thing, even if she was temporarily fooled by Zhang Dong's excuses, her heart would still be troubled. And teacher Xiao Bai asked Zhang Tan to help her get evidence. Listening to teacher Xiao Bai's words, Zhang Dong had a criminal record. However, Zhang Dong was a capable person. He did not know how he persuaded teacher Xiao Bai to forgive him in the past. Now that this kind of thing happened again, teacher Xiao Bai did not intend to let it go easily this time. On weekdays, teacher Xiao Bai was busy with the kindergarten students' affairs. The large amount of time during the day was enough for Zhang Dong to do a lot of things. Helping to keep an eye on people was not difficult for Zhang Tan, but it was a little boring. After a brief exchange of text messages, Zhang Tan did not directly give a reply. If it was a person, it would be fine. Cat's actions during the day were not very convenient, and Zhang Tan could not bring his mobile phone with him during the day. On this day, Zhang Tan was yawning as he walked to Zhang Dong's new rented neighborhood. He had observed here for a few days. Zhang Dong had recently restrained himself a lot. Even when he met the girl, although his attitude was still warm, he was probably scolded by teacher Xiao Bai and was not so greasy. Moreover, Zhang Tan did not think that this person would do anything during the day. Zhang Dong worked at a small company nearby, not far from the rented neighborhood. Zhang Tan was too lazy to keep following him. If he met him, he would go over to take a look. If he did not meet him, he would walk by himself. There was a small pet shop with 2 Totoros outside. It was very interesting. Every time Zhang Tan passed by, he would squat and stand there to take a look. In fact, Zhang Tan mainly looked at the girls who were attracted by the Totoro cats. The pet shop put 2 Totoro cats at the door and attracted a lot of people passing by, especially some young girls. The people gathered there were probably university students who had no classes in the morning and were out shopping. Zhang Tan's gaze followed the girls. The one in the middle had a nice figure. She had long legs and a slim waist. When she smiled, there were 2 dimples on her face. When the girls disappeared into the crowd, Zhang Tan was about to retract his gaze. Suddenly, his gaze froze. He saw a modern girl. Her long wavy hair seemed to be casually draped over her shoulders. Different from the clothes of the female students, her fashionable and mature charm made people's eyes light up. Although the color of her clothes was not conspicuous in the crowd, it had to be said that this woman's face, figure and temperament was fascinating. However, what made Zhang Tan unable to move his eyes away was the scene he caught when he was about to withdraw his gaze, and the woman's red lips after that. Just now, a man who was on the phone hurried past, and the modern girl walked over. The 2 walked opposite each other, and when they passed each other, their shoulders bumped. The modern girl smiled apologetically and apologized in a low voice. The middle-aged man who was on the phone stared at the girl for a few seconds, and then hurriedly said that it was okay. After the 2 passed each other, the woman's face raised a faint smile. From Zhang Tan's point of view, he just caught a flash of the scene. At the moment the 2 bumped into each other, the wallet in the middle-aged man's pocket had been moved. After seeing this, Zhang Tan could not help but sigh in his heart. Sure enough, you can't judge a book by its cover. Before Zhang Tan finished his sigh, he saw that the modern girl's smile deepened. She stared in a direction and waved her hand. Zhang Tan looked in that direction. Diagonally across the road, Zhang Dong, who was supposed to be at work, could not wait to run over and almost hit a taxi. These 2 know each other. That's right, they are both thieves. Moreover, these 2 are not bad looking. Although Zhang Tan looked down on Zhang Dong, he had to admit that this guy had a pretty face that was very attractive to women. The 2 should be very familiar with each other, and the way they interacted with each other was completely like old friends. There was even a hint of ambiguity. No, it should not be just ambiguity. Those little movements and the eye contact between the 2 made Zhang Tan certain that these 2 definitely had something going on. This guy is really awesome. Zhang Tan originally thought that Zhang Dong had a foot in 2 boats, but now it seemed that it was more than that. Perhaps this was just the tip of the iceberg? On the street, the 2 did not do anything too intimate. Zhang Dong raised his hand and brushed the long hair by the side of the woman's cheek. Following the hair, His finger brushed the woman's high twin peaks. His gaze also carried a hint of ambiguity. When his finger moved to a spot, Zhang Dong's finger lightly flicked. The wallet that he had stolen was also there, but it was covered by the jacket, so it was not easy to find. The woman took off her sunglasses and looked at Zhang Dong proudly. Then, she held Zhang Dong's arm and the two of them left. Zhang Tan followed. Since he had bumped into them, he would help Teacher Little White keep an eye on them. It was a pity that he did not bring his phone this time. Otherwise, he could have called Teacher Little White over to catch them in the act. Zhang Dong was in a good mood. Yesterday, he contacted this close friend of his and knew that she was coming to Chuhua City today. When he received a call from work in the morning, he asked for leave to pick her up. At the same time, he also asked for her help with the burglary incident. Of course, when he asked her to come over to help, he also wanted to have an intimate conversation with her. It was indeed good to find a wife like Teacher Little White who cared about the family, took care of the children, and did housework well. However, Zhang Dong preferred a more passionate woman. At the same time, he could not bear to let go of Little White. In addition, due to his personality, he had formed a habit of having one wife and going out to seduce others from time to time. Moreover, when he saw his old flame, he could not help it. Zhang Tan watched them walk into a hotel. The ambiguous and teasing gazes between the two of them made passers-by know that their relationship was not ordinary. And entering a hotel at this time, connecting the two of them to the interaction between them, Zhang Tan sighed again. If only he had his phone, he would be able to call Teacher Little White over to catch them. However, was it too late to go back and send it? After thinking about it, Zhang Tan quickly ran back to Chuhua University and turned on his phone in the tree hole. He briefly described what he saw and the name of the hotel. As for what Teacher Little White would do next, Zhang Tan did not know. Teacher Little White was currently in class. By the time school was over, the two of them should have finished their business. After sending the message, Zhang Tan was about to turn off his phone. Unexpectedly, there was a reply from the other side, asking if it was XXX Hotel on XX Road. Zhang Tan recalled the street where the hotel was located and replied, "Yes." After replying with a "thank you," there was no more reply. After putting down his phone, Zhang Tan ran to the kindergarten to take a look. Teacher Little White was not there. Another teacher had taken her place. He heard that Teacher Little White had something urgent to attend to and had left. "Brother Hey." Zhuo Xiaomao held a book in his hand and ran to the classroom window. Looking at Zhang Tan standing on the windowsill, he opened the book in his hand. "Brother Hey, look. A little red flower and a red flag." Zhang Tan looked at it. There were some simple letters on it. Many children did not write the simple letters well. However, as long as they wrote it well, they would get a red flower stamp. However, not everyone could get a red flag stamp. It had to be written correctly and well. Looking at Zhuo Xiaomao's expectant eyes, Zhang Tan raised his hand and patted his head. Zhuo Xiaomao stood there and grinned, as if he had received recognition and praise. However, Zhang Tan wanted to go to the hotel to check on the situation and did not listen to Zhuo Xiaomao's words. After patting Zhuo Xiaomao, Zhang Tan jumped down from the windowsill and left. As Zhuo Xiaomao watched Zhang Tan leave, the smile on his face faded. Teacher Little White was unhappy today. Brother Hey was unhappy too. Therefore he was unhappy too. A mushroom-headed girl from the same courtyard as Zhuo Xiaomao ran over. "Zhuo Xiaomao, do you know what 1 + 1 equals?" "It equals 2. The mushroom-headed girl was speechless. What was she vomiting for? On the other side, Zhang Tan ran to the hotel. Just as he was wondering why he did not see Teacher Little White and wondered if she had gone into the hotel to look for someone, he saw a figure rushing out of the hotel. It was Teacher Little White. Behind her, Zhang Dong chased after her. Looking at his sorry state, he must have put on his clothes in a hurry. There were many wrinkles on them. Teacher Little White was so angry that her eyes were red. She panted and did not say a word. After her arm was grabbed, she stopped and looked at Zhang Dong. She did not know how to scold him, nor did she know how to express her feelings. Perhaps it was because she was a kindergarten teacher that she could not say anything bad. Because she could not say anything, the most direct way to vent her feelings was to slap him. Slap. "Little White, you misunderstood." Zhang Dong did not care about the modern girl. He quickly found an excuse to cover up. Slap. Another slap. Listen to me. Zhang Dong wanted to stop Teacher Little White, who was about to leave. Slap. Another slap. Good slap. Zhang Tan looked at the two of them. From the sound of the slap, he knew how hard the slap was. Teacher Little White's strength, which she had trained from carrying children, came in handy now. A hotel staff came over and pushed Zhang Dong away. He then tried to persuade Teacher Little White. He seemed to know Teacher Little White. It was no wonder Teacher Little White could directly go in to catch them in the act. There were more and more people watching the show. Teacher Little White did not stand there and say anything more. She hailed a taxi and left, leaving Zhang Dong there to be pointed at. As for the modern girl, Zhang Tan did not see her. She probably knew that it was better to stay invisible. If she came out, she would only be criticized. In the afternoon, Zhang Tan ran to the forest and turned on his phone. He wanted to ask about Teacher Little White's situation. She was so angry in the morning that she did not go to the kindergarten in the afternoon. However, after turning on his phone, Zhang Tan realized that his phone had F*King stopped working. He had just topped up 50 yuan not long ago. How did it disappear so quickly? He thought about it. He had not called much during this period of time. Even if he had sent a lot of messages, it should not have stopped working so quickly. The only explanation was that she had sent pictures. In the past few days, other than exchanging messages, he had also sent quite a lot of pictures and MMS. Why did he not feel that the phone bill had decreased so quickly in the past? Communication in this day and age was not as convenient as it would be a few years later. A few years back, one could just log into a Wi-Fi chat app and send pictures and voice messages. However, it was different now. However, it was too late for Zhang Tan to realize this now. Looking at his phone, Zhang Tan thought about when he should go and recharge his phone today. Should he go to the newsstand to get a top-up card, or should he write an anonymous note with his phone number and leave it with the money at the top-up counter so that the people there could help him recharge his phone? Just as Zhang Tan was worrying about how to top up the phone bill, his phone received a message. Zhang Tan opened it and saw that he had just topped up 100 yuan. A few seconds later, another message came. It was from Teacher Little White. I'm really sorry. I didn't think it through. Chapter 267. After Teacher Xiaobai went back, she called the kindergarten to ask for leave because her emotions were unstable. Then, she stayed at home until her emotions calmed down a little. Then, she remembered the number with 4 sixes. It was also this number that had sent her pictures over the past few days, which made her realize that she had been deceived and deceived. She had to thank them. After sending a few messages and not receiving a reply, she directly called them. Unexpectedly, when she dialed, she said that the other party had stopped working. Stopped working? Teacher Xiaobai thought for a moment and suddenly realized that she had only cared about Zhang Dong's matter. She did not notice that it was very expensive to send pictures over the past few days. The other party had sent so many pictures, so it was possible that the phone had stopped working because it owed money. Therefore, she went downstairs to a phone service store and charged 100 yuan to the number with 4 sixes. Tsinghua University. Zhang Tan looked at the caller ID, paused, and pressed the answer button. Hello. Hello. May I ask if you can hear me? Teacher Xiaobai listened to the phone. Just as she was wondering if the other party was not in front of the phone, the sound of an object moving came from the phone, accompanied by some strange noise. On the other side, Zhang Tan picked his ears. A gust of wind had blown over and made his ears itchy. A few leaves had also fallen from the tree and were blown over, making rustling sounds as they hit the tree trunk. When the wind blew into the tree hole, it also caused some noise from the phone's microphone. All kinds of sounds mixed together and formed the strange sound that Teacher Xiaobai could not recognize. After waiting for a while, Teacher Xiaobai still did not hear the other party speak. She thought for a moment and said, "Although I don't know what grudge you have with Zhang Dong to tell me this, from my standpoint, I still have to thank you. Even if it's not convenient for us to meet, I hope you can accept my gratitude." Zhang Tan listened to Teacher Xiaobai's words over the phone. She was probably thinking of paying him a sum of money to thank him. Therefore, Zhang Tan pressed the button to hang up. Then, he typed a message and sent it over. "There's no need to thank me. Teach the children in the kindergarten well." After a while, Teacher Xiaobai replied, "Okay." Although it was only one word, Zhang Tan believed that Teacher Xiaobai was a good teacher. Joie Kitten liked this teacher very much because she was not as biased as some of the teachers in the kindergarten. Some teachers would pay more attention to the children of some school leaders or famous professors, but they would treat the children of some small lecturers coldly. Joie Kitten had been treated coldly before. Zhang Tan understood a little from listening to him speak. Although it was a very small matter in the eyes of many people, it could have a certain impact on the child. Teacher Xiaobai was very good to every child. She was patient and looked amiable. This was also the reason why Joie Kitten liked her. In terms of background, Joie Kitten was not weak. After all, she had Lord Zhang behind her. It was just that Lord Zhang did not directly stand up to speak when Joie Kitten entered the kindergarten. Some of the teachers in the kindergarten did not understand the relationship between Joie Kitten and Lord Zhang. However, if something happened that made Joie Kitten feel wronged, as long as Joie Kitten told her, Lord Zhang would definitely put on her Lord Zhang airs and tell those teachers to get lost. However, Joie Kitten did not tell anyone except Zhang Tan. Then one day, she placed a flattened cockroach in the teacher's pocket. In the end, when the teacher was putting on her coat, she reached into her pocket and took out a cockroach. She screamed and caused a group of children to cry on the spot. Because of this, the teacher was scolded. In Joie Kitten's words, under certain conditions, one should do their own things. What she meant was, if one could solve their own grievances, they should solve it themselves. If they could not solve it, they would ask for help. He did not know what teacher Xiaobai said to Zhang Dong, but Zhang Tan did not see Zhang Dong in the school anymore. After the first few days of not being in the right state, teacher Xiaobai gradually recovered. Brother hey, brother hey. Joie Kitten took her little notebook and ran to the window to show Zhang Tan the good results he had obtained in the past few days. Her eyes were bright as she looked at Zhang Tan for praise. Teacher Xiaobai walked into the classroom with a box of props. After the free activities were over, she would teach the children a children's song later. Her gaze swept around and then stopped at the window at the back of the classroom. As for the black cat, she had seen it a few times. Joie Kitten called it Brother Black. It was older than some of the children here. Moreover, this black cat would not hurt the children. Some of the children also followed Joie Kitten and called it Brother Black. Some of the teachers at Tsinghua University were more familiar with this cat. After understanding it, she was relieved and allowed the cat to come over and observe. The sunlight slanted in, and the wall by the window was sprinkled with gold. She watched as the black cat raised its paw and gently patted Joie Kitten's head. Then she looked at Joie Kitten's bright smile. She also smiled. As she was smiling, she noticed that the black cat squatting on the windowsill was looking in her direction. The expression in the cat's eyes made her heart tremble. She could not help but stop fiddling with the props in her hands. She felt that the expression in the cat's eyes was very special. When she was about to take a closer look, the black cat had already moved its gaze away. It raised its paw and bumped palms with Joie Kitten. Then, it jumped off the windowsill and left. It nimbly flipped over the wall outside and disappeared from sight. Zhang Tan prepared to go to the lakeside villa to see Hu Zi. The little guy had grown a lot stronger recently. It was full of energy and ran around everywhere. Feng Baijian's sports shoes, which cost more than 1,000 yuan, had been bitten by it. Just as he walked to the school hospital, it started to rain. Zhang Tan had no choice but to turn back and find a place to hide from the rain. Unexpectedly, just as he found a place to hide from the rain, the weather cleared up again. Was the weather *king teasing him? Zhang Tan squatted under a bicycle parking shed and cursed the weather in his heart. He looked around and saw that a cement pillar next to him was covered with all kinds of small advertisements. There were all kinds of ancestral secret recipes for difficult and complicated diseases, all kinds of fake certificates, and professional phone scavengers. They were mainly targeted at people who accidentally dropped their phones when they went to the bathroom to play with their phones. Among these common advertisements, Zhang Tan saw a newly posted message about a dog that was clearly printed in color. The dog that was missing was a short corgi leg. It was half a year old and wore a blue collar. It was lost last night. The words on the poster showed that the owner was very anxious. He also promised that the person who provided the clue would be rewarded, and the person who helped find the dog would be greatly rewarded. The phone number below was also written in bold letters. Zhang Tan looked at it and memorized the phone number. He thought that if he saw it, he would help out. The phone number was easy to remember. Zhang Tan looked at it twice and memorized it once. Looking at the sky, the sun was just right. It did not look like it had rained just now. However, Zhang Tan was not in the mood to go to the villa now. He turned around and climbed over a wall near a side door to enter Tsinghua University. From there to the eastern courtyard, if he walked in a straight line, he would have to pass by the old tile-roofed house. When Zhang Tan arrived at the old tile-roofed house, there were a few cats on the roof. However, they did not lie on the roof to bask in the sun. Instead, they gathered together and looked down. The tile-roofed house was a little shabby. It only had 2 floors, and when it was first built, each floor was a little lower than the current one, so it didn't look too tall. There was a hole in the roof, and the cats were surrounding the hole to look into the house. Zhang Tan listened and heard some movement from the bedroom. Out of curiosity, he also jumped onto the roof and squeezed in. He pushed away the 2 cats in front of him and looked down. Although there was a hole in the roof, other places were quite solid. There was no need to worry about it collapsing. Looking through the hole, there was a low table on the second floor. On the low table, there was a large plastic bowl and a plate. The plate was filled with water, and the plastic bowl was filled with pet food. Zhang Tan had heard that some association at Tsinghua University had organized a charity event. There were people feeding cats here. It was probably this house. The plastic bowl should be filled with cat food. It smelled like it. That was all. There was no need for the cats to gather here, right? He moved his ears. There was movement downstairs, and it was climbing up the stairs. Soon, Zhang Tan saw the cause of the movement. A cat and a dog. These 2 were probably playing happily, running up and down the stairs. They were not tired at all. As soon as the 2 appeared, the cats around the hole stretched their necks and squeezed to look inside. 2 of them wanted to go down and play, but they did not have the guts. The others seemed like they were just there to watch. They did not move. These cats were not necessarily stray cats. They were not crowded here because they were hungry, but more because they were curious. As for the stupid dog inside, Zhang Tan had just seen the sign on the cement pole. Was this stupid dog playing with the cats here? Everyone said that corgis were smart. There were corgis in the Western District compound, and they were not as stupid as this one. It seemed that the average IQ of the corgis was slightly higher. This corgi was probably dragging them down. It was probably tired from running around. The corgi jumped onto the low table with its short legs, drank the water in the plate, and ate a few pieces of cat food. Then, it opened its mouth and lay there panting. It did not think about how worried its owner was after it disappeared. It was not worried at all. According to the sign on the sign, it was lost yesterday. Today, it did not feel any sense of crisis at all. As for why it was locked here, it was not known whether it was deliberately done by someone or if no one noticed it when it came in. It put down the cat food and locked the door. In short, this guy was definitely stupid. People said that dogs did not mind if their owners were poor, and most of the time, people did not mind if their dogs were stupid. Some dogs were so stupid that their owners treated them like treasure. After Zhang Tan left the old tile-roofed house, he ran to use his phone to send a text message to the owner of the corgi, briefly explaining what had happened. The other party immediately called, but Zhang Tan refused to answer. He then said that it was not convenient for him to answer. The other party replied with a few words and went to find the dog. An hour later, Zhang Tan was playing a game to earn points when he suddenly received a text message. Found it. Bro, thank you so much. When are you free? Let's go out for a meal and I'll thank you properly. Zhang Tan could not really go out for a meal. Seeing that it was getting late, he hurriedly replied, "There's no need for a meal. If you really want to thank me, just help me top up my phone bill." After sending the text message, Zhang Tan turned off his phone and did not care about it anymore. The next day, when Zhang Tan came over and turned on his phone, he received a few text messages. The first one was a text message informing him of the payment. Zhang Tan looked closer. 1 and 30s. It was indeed 1,000 yuan. Damn. It really topped up. Relatively speaking, this was indeed a large sum of money. Zhang Tan did not expect that he would receive 1,000 yuan as a phone bill just by chance and sending a text message. With this 1,000 yuan and the phone bill that teacher Little White had given him, Zhang Tan did not have to worry about owing money for a long time. Chapter 268. Since he didn't have to pay his own bills, he didn't have to worry about the downtime. He didn't have to expose himself, and he didn't have to be afraid of being investigated. He could even have fun. No wonder there were so many private detectives nowadays. The market demand was high, and it was easy to make money. Catching mistresses and finding evidence seemed to be a lucrative business. However, Zhang Tan didn't plan to do those things. He helped teacher Xiao Bai because she was nice to Zhua Kitten. At the same time, Zhang Tan also wanted to teach Zhang Dong a lesson. After this incident, Zhang Tan had no interest in helping anyone else. After solving the annoying problem of topping up the phone bill, Zhang Tan was in a good mood. Even his paws were faster when he played mobile games. He didn't make as many mistakes as before, and he got a high score in one go. Although he didn't have to pay his own phone bill, Zhang Tan was still very active in earning cash. Every time he was brought by Xiao Gua to shoot promotional videos and advertisements, Zhang Tan didn't hesitate to get overtime pay from Xiao Gua. In the past, he was annoyed that the cats in the pet shop always made mistakes. Now, he couldn't wait for the cats to not cooperate so that he could earn more cash. Zhang Tan didn't plan to pay his phone bill for the time being. He planned to save the cash for emergency use. Sometimes, even if he had a large amount of savings in his card, it would be a waste if he didn't have cash on hand. Today, because it was the weekend, the two children were at home. Jiao Ma was dragged out shopping by a few colleagues, and Jiao Pa was not there. After being promoted to a professor, Father Jiao had applied for a good project. Now, he had a few projects on hand and was very busy. Now, a few fourth-year students, as well as a few third-year and second-year students, had joined him. Some of them wanted to familiarize themselves with the laboratory. After all, there was still a big gap between undergraduate students and graduate students. Their independent exposure to experiments was also limited. If they wanted to develop in this direction, they had to prepare in advance. Some of them were interested in Professor Jiao's current reputation and the projects on hand. After all, if they followed a teacher who had projects and topics and could produce results, not only would they be able to get a salary, but it would also be of great help to them in the future. It would be best if they could write an SCI thesis before they graduated from their undergraduate degree. Not only would they be able to compete for scholarships, but it would also be of great help to them in the future. It would be best if they could write an SCI thesis before they graduated from their undergraduate degree. Jiao Pa's reputation in the institute had indeed increased a lot, especially when there were people supporting him from the top. It couldn't be helped. Those big shots had taken Jiao Pa's red nest rat, and it would be unreasonable if they didn't help him. When Zhang Tan went to the Institute of Biological Sciences, he heard a few students talking about the situation of the teachers in the institute. Once, Zhang Tan even heard them talking about who among the current generation of green pepper, young teacher, was most likely to take over the position of Dean Xie. Among them, Jiao Pa's voice was the loudest. Jiao Pa's reputation had increased, and his family's status had also increased a lot. Zhang Tan knew about little Pomelo's side better. Now, some of the teachers in the affiliated primary schools were much nicer to little Pomelo. In the past, they didn't say anything to her. At this moment, there were no adults in the house, and Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo weren't 7 or 8 years old, so they had to look after them. Little Pomelo finished her homework and watched TV in the living room, while Jiao Yuan was doing test papers in his room. Junior high school students had more learning tasks. Although the children of the teachers in high school seemed to be very well off, they were also under a lot of pressure. If they didn't do well, they would directly embarrass their parents. Even if Jiao Pa, Jiao Ma didn't say anything, Jiao Yuan didn't want to hear people say things like, "Isn't your father a professor at Tsinghua University? How can you do so poorly?" Even if children of officials or rich families had bad grades, it was okay. Other students would express understanding, but if the children of the teachers in high school didn't do well, they would be choked to death. Zhang Tan opened the drawer of the cat tree and looked through the business cards. These business cards all had mobile phone numbers on them. The only exception was the one with the number 68. There was no mobile phone number on it, only an email address. Zhang Tan originally wanted to ask this experienced guy for some experience, but he didn't expect that this guy didn't even leave his phone number. Forget it, I'll think about it later. As Zhang Tan was looking at the business cards, the phone at home rang. Little Pomelo ran to pick it up, and quickly ran out and knocked on Jiao Yuan's door. "Brother, it's Xiong who's looking for you. If he's looking for someone to play basketball, tell him that I'm not free. Damn it, next week is the stage test. I'm waiting to get into the top 3 and slap those people's faces." Jiao Yuan shouted from inside. Little Pomelo passed Zhao Yuan's words to Xiong Xiong, and soon ran back to Zhao Yuan's door and said, Xiong Xiong said it's not about playing basketball. He said it's about buying gifts. Zhao Yuan screamed from inside. Damn it, I forgot. Zhao Yuan quickly opened the door and ran to answer the phone in his slippers. Seeing Little Pomelo and Zhang Tan at the door, Zhao Yuan, who was about to answer the phone, immediately ran back and closed the door of the master bedroom. Zhang Tan and Little Pomelo looked at each other. What other secrets does this kid have? After closing the door, Little Pomelo could not hear the conversation inside, but Zhang Tan heard it clearly. It seemed that a girl in Zhao Yuan's class invited them to her birthday party tomorrow. Zhao Yuan forgot to buy a gift after doing the test paper, and now Xiong Xiong asked him to go out and look at the gift. Hearing Zhao Yuan's tone, that girl should be quite pretty. She might even be the prettiest girl in the class. TSK, what's there to be embarrassed about chasing a girl? He even closed the door to talk about something. But then again, it seemed that parents nowadays did not allow puppy love. Zhang Tan did not have such concerns and restrictions when he was young. 5 minutes later, Zhao Yuan came out. He asked Little Pomelo shyly, Pomelo, do you have any money on hand? I'll borrow it for an emergency. I'll return it to you in 2 days. Little Pomelo did not say anything. She ran over and rummaged through her wallet. She found 20 yuan. She did not have much money on hand. Although her irresponsible mother would transfer a sum of money to her card every year, she never looked at it. Usually, she would save up the pocket money that Zhao Ma and Zhao Pa gave her. When she reached a certain amount, she would transfer it to Zhao Pa. She also bought books and other necessities. A few days ago, the school organized a donation for a primary school in the mountains. She donated 50 yuan. For primary school students, this kind of charity donation was usually 5 to 10 yuan. More than 10 yuan was considered a large donation. Zhao family heard about this from others. Little Pomelo did not mention it at home. The money she donated was her own pocket money. She decided how to spend it. Zhao Pa and Zhao Ma did not interfere. However, because of the donation, Little Pomelo did not have much pocket money on hand. She counted and found that she had less than 20 yuan. Looking at the expression on Zhao Yuan's face, she knew that she did not have enough money. 2 days ago, he bought a new basketball and sportswear, which basically used up all his pocket money. He and Little Pomelo's bank cards were all with Zhao Pa. Of course, Zhao Yuan knew his father well. If he called to ask for the cards, he would definitely be exposed. He did not want his father to know about this. There are still coins in the piggy bank. Little Pomelo said as she picked up the black cat piggy bank. There were 15 cents in it. Altogether, there should be about 10 yuan. However, when Little Pomelo was about to pick up the piggy bank, a cat paw pressed down on her hand, stopping her from opening the piggy bank. Then, under the puzzled gaze of the two kids, Zhang Tan ran to the cat tree, opened an unlocked drawer, took out 50 yuan, and handed it to Zhao Yuan. Zhao Yuan and Little Pomelo. Zhao Yuan's mouth was wide open. He took the 50 yuan and checked its authenticity. Then, with a look of disbelief, he asked, "Where did you get this?" Just as Zhao Yuan finished speaking, Zhang Tan took out another 50 yuan and handed it to him. After checking the authenticity of the note, Zhao Yuan looked curiously at Zhang Tan's small drawer. He found a bunch of notes in it, ranging from 10 to 100 yuan. "Pomelo, our black charcoal is actually a little rich cat, right? But, where did black charcoal get so much money?" Little Pomelo suddenly remembered that she had heard Zhao Pa mention it before. "I think it's black charcoal's overtime pay for shooting commercials." When Zhang Tan came back from overtime, Zhao Yuan and Little Pomelo weren't there, so they didn't see Zhang Tan hide the money with their own eyes. Little Pomelo had only overheard a few sentences from Zhao Pa and Xiao Gua when they were chatting. She didn't expect that there really was so much money. Little Pomelo and Zhao Yuan also didn't expect that Zhang Tan had so much more money on his card. Zhao Yuan sighed, then put one of the 50 yuan notes back into the drawer for Zhang Tan, leaving only the other 50 yuan in his hand. He even helped Zhang Tan close the drawer. 50 yuan is enough. Black charcoal, save it for when you get married. Zhang Tan didn't know what to say. Zhao Yuan was still worried, so he asked Little Pomelo to keep an eye on the cat tree. Little Pomelo nodded cautiously. Zhang Tan didn't know what to say again. Zhang Tan saved money for emergencies, so he wasn't stingy when he gave money to his family. He also planned to give red packets to his family members on their birthdays or during the new year. Oh, and Zhua Kitten, he also planned to give one to her. In Zhang Tan's heart, he had always regarded himself as an elder, not a peer of Jiao Yuan. At this time, he chose to forget that the Zhang Tan in this world was actually about the same age as Jiao Yuan. Jiao Yuan went out with Xiong Xiong and didn't come back for dinner. Yu Lisha and Xia Xin from the western courtyard came to talk to little Pomelo about next week's blackboard bulletin. Zhang Tan had nothing to do after dinner, so he went out for a walk. There were many side roads on the old street, and one of them led to a place where it was very lively at night. Zhang Tan came here tonight to see if he could see Peanut Candy fighting a Pekingese dog. Peanut Candy had recently been eyeing a Pekingese dog with mixed fur, and every time he went there, he would fight. After walking through a long alley, it was immediately lively. There were food stalls everywhere. Every evening, this place would be quite lively. It was filled with the smell of daily necessities. Most of the people who were active here were people with low social status. After all, those social elites rarely gathered in places like food stalls. They felt that it was degrading. After entering, their expensive suits would inevitably be stained with the smell of cheap beer and cooking oil mixed with cooking oil. The people who came here also didn't maintain an arrogant and reserved demeanor. 2 big plates of barbecue skewers bought by the roadside, a table full of favorite dishes, a few bottles of beer, chatting and laughing, and showing their true temperament. Zhang Tan wasn't interested in the smell of food at all. What he was worried about was that when he was avoiding a drunkard, he stepped on a piece of bubble gum. What was worse was that the bubble gum was very sticky. He couldn't shake it off, and he couldn't rub it off. What kind of brand was this? It was so King disgusting. From today onwards, bubblegum would be listed as one of Zhang Tan's most hated things, and he would stay away from it. While Zhang Tan was struggling with the bubblegum in his forearm, 2 people at a table not far away were looking at him. Chapter 269. Near the edge, Zhang Tan was rubbing the lump of bubblegum on his palm on the ground. From time to time people would pass by. When they saw Zhang Tan, they would quickly avoid him and say a few words of disgust. They were afraid of encountering a crazy or cramping cat. Zhang Tan was already angry because he stepped on the bubblegum. When he heard these people say, crazy cat, and sick, he was so angry that he wanted to give them a flying kick or 2. However, he couldn't get rid of the lump on his palm. It was not clean, and there was a lot of dust and gravel on the ground. It was even more disgusting than when he first stepped on it. Just as Zhang Tan was about to go back and ask Jiao Ma to help him clean up, he noticed that someone was walking towards him. He looked up and saw a young man in his late 20s. Zhang Tan didn't feel any malice from him. His palm was still rubbing on the flower bed next to him, but his eyes were fixed on the person in front of him. Even if he didn't have any malice, he still had to be on guard. Is there something on his paw? The man said to himself. He then walked back to the table and pulled some cheap paper towels from the table. Zhang Tan realized that this person probably wanted to help. He looked quite righteous, so he decisively raised his hand and pointed his palm with the bubblegum at the man. Huh! The man obviously didn't expect the cat in front of him to be so cooperative. He was still thinking about how to turn the cat's paw over without being bitten. He had encountered a similar situation before. Last month, an auntie's cat in the neighborhood had a fishbone in its mouth. She asked him to help, and after a long time, the bone was removed. Both of his arms were scratched and bloody, and it hadn't completely faded yet. However, at this moment, it seemed that he was overthinking. Not every cat was so uncooperative. This cat was indeed a little special. Zhang Tan watched the man wrap the bubblegum with a piece of paper that was already covered with dust and gravel. He then pulled it off from his paw little by little, and changed to a new piece of paper to wipe it a few times. Done! The man threw the bubblegum wrapping paper into a nearby trash can. Then, he reached out to touch Zhang Tan's head, but Zhang Tan avoided him. Zhang Tan bent the cat's palm to take a look. He moved his palm, rolled it up, opened it up, rolled it up again, and opened it up again. That lump of bubblegum was too sticky. Even after wiping off most of it with a tissue, some of it still stuck to the fur between his palms. However, it was much better than the uncomfortable feeling from before. Stepping on the ground, Zhang Tan tried to walk a few steps. Not bad. Although it was still a little awkward, it was still acceptable. When he got back, He would ask Jiao Ma to think of a way to deal with it. He just needed to take a shower. Without that big lump sticking to him, Zhang Tan felt that it was much easier to walk. The helper walked back to the table by the roadside and sat down. He continued to chat with the older man at the table. Meddling in other people's business again? The older one disagreed. I'm just helping out. There are so many people passing by, but it's not convenient. You're the only one who's convenient? Cats are the most heartless. Even those animals that are described on TV and newspapers as being grateful are only a minority. Most of them forget that you're good to them the next day. Those cats and dogs out there, don't be too nice to them. They might even bite you. The older man raised his hand and pointed in Zhang Tan's direction. He said to the person across the table, even if you feed them well, they only treat you as a meal ticket. When you're in trouble, it's good enough that they don't give you trouble. What can they do to help you? Zhang Tan was implicated. He was innocent. He looked at the person who was talking and heard the other person say, even if you kneel down and beg it, it won't come over. Hence, Zhang Tan gave the other person face and walked over. The person who was talking caught a glimpse of Zhang Tan's movement. The rest of his words were stuck in his throat. He maintained his previous posture and stared in Zhang Tan's direction. Under their surprised gazes, Zhang Tan walked over and jumped onto an empty plastic chair next to their table. He then looked at the older man. Go on, go on. The older man's face twitched. He took back his hand, picked up a piece of food with his chopsticks, and drank half a bottle of beer. He then said to the person across from him, what have you been busy with recently? The young man didn't react in time to the sudden change of topic. He thought for a while and said, a lot of things have happened at Chuling Avenue recently. Chuling Avenue was the name of the commercial street after the old street. It wasn't far from the food stall. Oh, I heard about that. 2 days ago, a rich businessman from another city came here for an inspection. He lost his phone at Chuling Avenue. I heard that after reporting the case, he even complained. The people in charge of this area have been criticized, right? The young man grunted. In recent months, there have been more people reporting crimes there. The crime rate is high. The surveillance cameras installed in the shops there didn't work. It's obvious that he's a habitual offender and is familiar with the area. What he didn't say was that when they were criticized, they were so miserable. It seemed like they didn't have to think about getting a bonus this year. They could only rely on their meager salary to continue living. Yeah, I heard that his phone is worth 28,000 yuan. You must know that the law and order there is poor. Buying such an expensive phone and showing it off on the streets, isn't that asking for theft? Saying that the law and order were poor in front of a police officer was a slap in the face. But because they understood each other, the young man didn't get angry. He only felt helpless because it was a fact that they couldn't catch the culprit. It was also a fact that the crime rate was high. How is it now? Is there any progress? The older man asked. The young man shook his head. We've investigated all the people with criminal records. Although there are a few cases that match, they shouldn't be the ones who stole the 28,000 yuan phone. There are still people hiding it. We just don't know. You investigated all the people over there? Isn't there a little Zhang or little Lu? What about your colleagues? The older man asked. He remembered that the people with criminal records over there didn't have simple backgrounds. If they were investigated carefully, those people would definitely complain. They investigated a few too. Did they leave all the easier ones to deal with and the harder ones to chew to you? Seeing that the other party didn't speak, the older man continued, it's quite difficult, right? Look, they didn't even come forward. Are you the only one who's righteous? Even if you don't say it, I know that those difficult ones will definitely complain about you again. When you were handling cases in the past, you did the difficult ones and others took the credit. You don't learn from your mistakes. Do you think this is a blockbuster film where you can show off your blood-stained glory to your heart's content? The young man lowered his head after being reprimanded, then smiled helplessly. It couldn't be helped. He had such a personality. Seeing the other party smile, the older man's anger rose again. He used his chopsticks to knock the young man's head. You smile when I say it. Are you trying to fool us again? Your mindset hasn't changed. Why haven't you learned your lesson after being scammed a few times? In this society, people who are kind are bullied. Little Luo, Don't blame me for being long-winded. You're almost 30 years old. A few years will pass in the blink of an eye. You have no money, no status, no car, no house, and no woman. In the eyes of others, you're just a loser. Most importantly, you're stupid. Stupid. Stubborn. One-track mind. There's no room for appreciation. Zhang Tan watched the two of them talk. One of them was spitting all over the table, while the other could only smile foolishly after being reprimanded. Although the topic was a little serious and heavy, why was the scene so amusing? After the older man finished reprimanding, he probably felt that his words were too harsh. He knew that once he drank, he would speak bluntly. He paused, picked up the bottle in front of him and said, "Come, let's drink." After the two of them drank the bottle, the older man sighed and said, "Why don't you go somewhere else? Although I'm not in this line of work now, I still have some connections. I'm not a big shot, but I can help a little. You should know that there's a big difference between a police station with money and a police station with no money." Cough, no, it should be the difference in reporting expenses. No need. Thank you, Brother Chen. I think that place is fine. The older man took a deep breath and was about to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He waved his hand and changed the topic. Around them were tables placed under the night sky. There were people talking loudly and chatting everywhere. No one paid attention to the two of them. Zhang Tan perked up his ears and listened to the people around him talking loudly, from international affairs to the increase in the price of eggs in the vegetable market. The grassroots had a wide range of concerns. In many people's eyes, it was like the heart of the earth and the sea. The life of eating gutter oil was the heart of the Zhongnan Hai. To put it in a good way, it could be said that everyone was responsible for the rise and fall of the world. When Celestine and the others got together, they also laughed and talked about this topic. What Celestine and the others meant was that the grassroots, which many people thought was meaningless, were better than some high-end elites who were increasingly indifferent to other things except for their own interests. Zhang Tan also drank some beer. The older man poured it for Zhang Tan with the extra disposable cups on the table. They drank directly from the bottle, so the cups were useless. The older man poured the beer for Zhang Tan because he drank too much and had nothing to do. He didn't expect that Zhang Tan would really drink. "I think there's something wrong with this cat," the older man muttered. "It's okay," Xiao Luo said. There were cats that drank alcohol, but they were very rare. "Don't doubt me. Although I'm not in this line of work, my eyesight is still there. This cat. Hey, I said this meal is on me. Why are you so active? Do you have money or do I?" The older man saw that Xiao Luo was going to pay, so he quickly stopped talking and took out his wallet to pay the bill. After dinner and drinking, the two were ready to leave. "Right, give me your phone. I sent my phone to be repaired, and all the saved numbers are gone," the older man said to Xiao Luo. "I'll call you directly." Xiao Luo took out his phone. "No, I didn't bring my phone. I left it at home to charge. I came out in a hurry, so I didn't bring it. Hey, I forgot to buy a spare battery today. It's inconvenient to have only one battery." Zhang Tan secretly nodded in agreement. One battery was indeed inconvenient. Fortunately, the current mobile phones were not like the big-screen mobile phones of the future, so the battery consumption was not so high. If it was a smartphone of the future, it would need to be charged every day if it was used frequently, which would annoy Zhang Tan to death. Now, he chose to charge it secretly when there was no one at home. He didn't know when it would be exposed. "Last time I bought a cheap one, and it didn't take long for the battery to swell. I was scolded by your sister-in-law for a long time. This time, I'll buy a better one. Keep your eyes open, and don't be fooled by others. TSK, now everything is fake and everything is fake. People when they come out to live in society, if they don't keep their eyes open and think fast, they will be cheated." Xiao Luo reported his phone number several times. The older man drank too much and couldn't remember it. He didn't have anything to write, so he asked the shop owner for a piece of paper to write it down. Zhang Tan remembered Xiao Luo's phone number. When he heard them talking about the phone theft on Chunning Avenue, Zhang Tan thought of a person. Chapter 270. He did not see Peanut Candy flirting with the little Pekingese, but he knew about it. After Zhang Tan returned to Tsinghua University, he did not go straight to the East District compound. Instead, he went to the small forest at the edge of the campus and sent a message to Luo. He told him about Zhang Dong stealing his phone and listed a few examples that he had seen with his own eyes. He even mentioned Zhang Dong's company. After sending the message and turning off his phone, Zhang Tan went home in a good mood and let the Jiao Ma wash his paws. He had done what he needed to do. As for how things would develop from here on out, it was up to Luo. Although he looked like an idiot, being able to work in this line of work proved that there was no problem with his IQ. After Luo returned home, even though he was mentally exhausted, he could not fall asleep. The human body was the most sensitive at night. The night was too quiet, and one would think too much. Especially after drinking and listening to a senior's lecture at night, it was hard not to think too much. He knew where his shortcomings were. He was not muddle-headed, but he did not know how to reject people most of the time. Just as Luo was wondering if he was really a failure as a person, his phone rang. It was a text message. He could not think of anyone who would send a text message at this time. If there was an urgent matter in the institute, they would call directly. As for the text message, it was probably from the telecommunications company. However, when Luo picked up his phone and saw the 4CXS displayed on the screen, he was puzzled. It was not from the telecommunications company? Did he send the wrong message? Or was it a fraudulent message? When he opened it, Luo's gloominess was swept away. He immediately sat up and read the content of the message seriously. There was too much information in it. Moreover, it did not look like it was made up. An anonymous report? How did this informant know his phone number? Could it be that he heard it from someone in the neighborhood? Usually, Luo was often called by the aunties in the neighborhood to help. Everyone knew Luo's occupation. He was honest and did not ask for anything in return. To put it bluntly, he was too stupid and honest. Therefore, if there was anything they needed, they would look for him directly. It was more effective than calling 110. Even if they needed to block a toilet or stuff a cat's teeth, they would call him directly. Therefore, the aunties in the neighborhood Luo lived in usually bought groceries, cooked, played mahjong, and talked about Luo. Those aunties did not need to flip the number. They could even close their eyes and recite his phone number backwards. That was why Luo thought that the other party might have heard about it from someone in the neighborhood. No matter what, this was a meaningful clue in the past few days. He took out his notebook and wrote down some clues and his own opinions so that he wouldn't forget. He was going to pay attention to Zhang Dong the next day. Luo called the anonymous informant to find out more about the situation, but the other party's phone was turned off. After thinking about it, he typed a thank you message. Even if Zhang Tan despised Zhang Dong's character, he had to admit that Zhang Dong knew how to hide his true nature. When he interacted with others, he was very careful to cover up his shameful side. Otherwise, Teacher Little Bai would not have been unable to discover his true nature. However, if they were to spy on him purposefully, it would be relatively easy to discover this person's abnormality. Zhang Dong had a house in the old neighborhood. Now that he had moved, he rented out his house in the old neighborhood and rented out his house in the elevator house neighborhood. He still had some savings on hand. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to afford to rent a house in the high-end elevator house neighborhood. Generally, low-level employees would rent cheap houses. Private houses that cost 100 yuan a month, basement, or the old neighborhood were all good choices for them. Now that Teacher Littlebai had broken up with him and humiliated him in public, Zhang Dong was in a bad mood for a period of time. Whenever he was in a bad mood, he would find a way to vent. Therefore, he did a lot of things. Seeing others anxious about losing things, Zhang Dong felt a lot better. The reason why Zhang Dong liked to steal was not because he was living in poverty, but because it was a habit and a psychological pleasure. Perhaps at first, he did it because he was short of money, but later on, even if he found a stable job and had a stable income to maintain his life, he would still go out for a stroll every time he was in a bad mood to adjust his mood and pick up some things to improve his life. Just as he was about to balance his mood and start a new life, he was caught red-handed. Other than his stealing skills, Zhang Dong's other skills were not very good, such as anti-stalking. For example, when Zheng Tan went into his house to make trouble, this guy couldn't figure out anything. He didn't notice that little Luo was watching him, so he could only be caught. If it were Mao and the others, they could get rid of the stalker in the blink of an eye. After Zhang Dong was caught, little Luo and the others also took out some things that were not so good for Zhang Dong. This time, Zhang Dong was really defeated. However, Zhang Dong didn't understand why the police would target him. There were only a few people who knew that he had committed a crime, And those people didn't have to betray him. That would be disadvantageous to them. Even if others knew about Zhang Dong's things, they only knew a nickname. They hadn't seen Zhang Dong with their own eyes, so they wouldn't be able to contact him. After being interrogated skillfully, Zhang Dong finally confessed that he had stolen the 28,000 yuan mobile phone. Little Luo and the others found the mobile phone according to Zhang Dong's words and returned it to the foreign businessman. The foreign businessman was very grateful to Little Luo. The mobile phone was bought by his daughter. He liked to show off his daughter's filial piety in front of others, not how expensive or high-end the mobile phone was. Later, the rich businessman mentioned Little Luo's name several times when he was talking to a few small leaders. Therefore, when some gossip came from the branch, many people in the station guessed that Little Luo's luck was going to change. At least the reward would not be small. On the other side, Zhang Dong, who admitted his defeat, asked to die knowing. After Zhang Dong was arrested, Little Luo was also in charge of the interrogation. He was the biggest contributor to this incident, and only he knew the reason why Zhang Dong was defeated. However, in the face of Zhang Dong's request, Little Luo did not agree. Many people had asked him before, but Comrade Little Luo was very tight-lipped. He did not reveal any information about the person who provided the clue. Although he only knew a phone number, he did not say anything. He was not a very flexible person, but he also knew that in some situations, the person who provided the clue also had to bear the risk. Otherwise, it would be easy to be retaliated against, so he chose to keep his mouth shut. The leaders and colleagues had also asked, but they knew Little Luo's character. If he did not want to say anything, no matter how hard they tried, they would not be able to pry it open. Therefore, no one asked after that. After Zhang Dong's request was rejected, before he was taken away, he gave a phone number in front of Little Luo and the other police officers. It's the person with the number 46, right? Zhang Dong looked at Little Luo and the others. Only he can trap me. Hey, that person's stealing skills are much better than mine. Zhang Dong also had an idea in his heart. Even if the Chuning Avenue incident had nothing to do with the person who used the number, he still wanted to drag the other party into it. That number was a thorn in his heart. Zhang Dong was good at reading people's expressions. Just now when he said that phone number, the expression on Little Luo's face made Zhang Dong feel a chill down his spine. Little Luo's facial expression told Zhang Dong that it was indeed the work of those 4-6 that he fell into. At this moment, Zhang Dong's mood was more of fear than hatred. This feeling was as if he was standing in a pitch-black darkness, and there was a pair of eyes hidden in the darkness. This pair of eyes had been staring at him, waiting to give him a very damaging blow at any time. He had no way of knowing who the owner of the pair of eyes was, nor did he know where the other party was. Up until now, he had fallen into the hands of that mysterious person twice, or perhaps 3 times. He might have been involved in Little White's matter. Who was it? Zhang Dong believed the anonymous report. Little Luo did not know that person, so Zhang Dong also believed it. It was precisely because of this that he felt even more afraid. Even if the police suspected that the person was involved in some of the cases on Chuning Avenue, he felt that the other party must be a very mysterious and powerful person. It would not be easy to catch him, and perhaps no one would ever be able to catch him. In the end, Zhang Dong still did not know who was behind this. Even if he was beaten to death, he would never have thought that this was the result of offending a cat. Since Zhang Dong said it in front of several police officers, it was impossible for Little Luo to continue investigating even if he did not want to. The others also wanted to make a contribution, so they wanted to find out who the user of the 46 number that Zhang Dong mentioned was. However, after a rough check, they found that the number did not match. Just as Zhang Dong said, it was a card that he had bought from someone, so there would be no real information of the person who used it. Checking the spending records and top-up information? It was useless. After the phone was stolen from Zhang Dong, it had been topped up 3 times. The first time was the top-up card, and the other 2 times were from someone else. The 2 people who did the top-up did not know who was behind this number. Location phone? In the station, the few of them did not have the authority to do so. Of course they could check it, but it was a little troublesome. There were some things in the procedures, and it was not easy to bypass them. They had to go through the relevant approval procedures. However, the current user of that number had not reached that level. They were still afraid that the other party would turn around and sue them. Recently, everyone was afraid of the complaints. Under the situation where they were not sure if they would be able to get credit, they did not want to get into trouble again. The gains would not make up for the losses. As for some companies that could provide location services, if they wanted to check a person's location, they had to get the person's permission first. The person who used the number was not a fool. It would be strange if he agreed. Zhang Tan should be glad that at this time, mobile phones were not so smart, and some location services were not so simple. Otherwise, he would have more trouble. As for the 2 phones that Zhang Dong said were stolen not long ago, a few junior police officers had also checked. The pink phone had been returned to its owner. As for the other phone, there was no report from the owner, and they could not find it now. Since it was difficult to check in all aspects, and that number did not seem like someone who did something bad, and after Zhang Dong was arrested, Chunning Avenue was much more peaceful. It was not known if it was because the culprit was arrested, or if the criminals there were more vigilant recently. But in short, Xiao Luo and the rest did not receive any reports or complaints from the public. This case was considered to be over. When they were free, a few colleagues in the station called Xiao Luo to chat. Do you think the person behind this number wants to be a city thief? Something like returning a thief's belongings to their rightful owners, someone said. Do you think this is the new era's Chu Liuxiang plus a domestic version of Spider-Man? Climbing walls to become a city thief. Someone sneered. Stop investigating. The higher-ups did not say anything. What are we doing? Do you think we are the key case investigation unit? Xiao Luo sat at the side and did not say anything. He was wondering why the person who reported it did not turn it on. Was he planning to give up on the card? Chapter 271. After Zhang Tan sent the text to Luo, he didn't pay much attention to the progress of the case. He didn't even read the newspapers for the past few days. This was because one day, when he went to Zhao Yuan's room to read a hot magazine, he found a bag of something. Zhang Tan had a deep impression of the XX brand milk tea, printed on the small bag. He had seen it when he followed Air Mao to look for Senior Walnut. He had thought it was a counterfeit product, but it turned out to be a dangerous product. It had been more than half a year since the drug-related cleanup incident. Shouldn't this kind of product have been destroyed long ago? It was no joke that this kind of product was leaked out. It was estimated that a lot of people would be harmed. Zhao Yuan was only in his 3rd year of middle school in September, right? Wasn't he usually very obedient? How did he come into contact with this kind of stuff? Zhang Tan did come into contact with this kind of stuff when he was in middle school, but he didn't dare to come into contact with it. Now that this kind of thing had happened to Zhao Yuan, Zhang Tan's feelings were quite complicated. Of course, Zhang Tan wasn't sure if this bag of milk tea powder actually contained that kind of stuff. After all, in the batch that he saw, only a small number of bags contained goods. Or maybe, Zhao Yuan didn't know that there was something else inside? Therefore, after he found this bag of suspected dangerous products, Zhang Tan didn't have the mood to play with his phone anymore. He waited at home, thinking about what to do next. In the afternoon, when Zhao Yuan came back, Zhang Tan stayed in Zhao Yuan's room and stared at him. Zhao Yuan was confused. Usually, after dinner, Zhang Tan would go to little Pomelo's room or run out to play. He rarely stared at Zhao Yuan doing his homework. Black charcoal, what are you doing? Zhao Yuan poked Zhang Tan with his pen. Zhang Tan raised his hand and pushed it away. He wasn't in the mood to play with this kid. Why do I feel that you are very serious today? Are you bored? I'll give you something to play with. Zhao Yuan opened the drawer and was about to look for a tennis ball that hadn't been used in a long time. Unexpectedly, a cat paw reached over and lifted the bag of milk tea powder on the side. Hey, black charcoal, what are you doing? Zhao Yuan was about to pick up the milk tea powder on the ground. What are you doing? I'll help you, you little bastard. Before Zhao Yuan's hand touched the bag of milk tea powder, Zhang Tan lifted it again. His target was the trash bin next to the desk. Zhao Yuan frowned at Zhang Tan's actions and asked, Black charcoal, is there a problem with the milk tea powder? That's true. It's been so long since the birth date. Drinking it will probably cause diarrhea. If it was just a simple case of diarrhea, I wouldn't be so agitated. Zhang Tan lifted the bag of milk tea powder into the trash bin and covered the mouth of the trash bin with a plastic bag. Zhao Yuan stared at Zhang Tan for a few seconds, then got up and went to his parents' master bedroom to make a call. He closed the door before making the call. Father Zhao wasn't at home and was busy in the courtyard. Mother Zhao was watching TV on the sofa. When she saw Zhao Yuan's actions, she clicked her tongue. Why would he close the door when he was making a call? The childishness of adolescence was indeed awkward. Zhao Ma didn't think much of it and continued watching TV. Zhang Tan stayed in front of the master bedroom door and listened. He heard Zhao Yuan say to the person on the other end of the phone, "My cat must have smelled something. Don't drink it." I continued to call the others. At that time, the students from the other classes only gave 5 of us, right? They said it was expensive and good stuff. When they gave it to us, they were reluctant to part with it. I think the exemption sign on the bag must be fake. Hearing Zhao Yuan's words, Zhang Tan was relieved. It was good that Zhao Yuan knew there was something wrong with the bag. It didn't matter if there were any prohibited items in the bag. It was always good to avoid any precautions. Knowing that these things were given to Zhao Yuan and the others by someone else, and that these kids had no idea that there might be goods inside, Zhang Tan was furious. Who the F***ck is so annoying? How dare they harm my kids? The students from the other classes? They should be Zhao Yuan's third-year junior high school students. After the call, Zhao Yuan went back to his room. He didn't rush to do his homework. He closed the door and talked to Zhang Tan. After all, he couldn't tell the others at home. Now, his friends were all at home, and Zhang Tan was the only one listening to them. He didn't have to worry about being told. "Charcoal, tell me, do you think those fellows are up to no good?" After listening to Zhao Yuan's words, Zhang Tan knew that the bag was given to them by the third-year students from the other classes at Zhao Yuan's classmates' birthday party. Originally, they only wanted to give 2 bags, but Xiong thought they were stingy, so they reluctantly gave them 1 bag each. It wasn't that Xiong thought they were stingy, but he didn't like them. Among the students from the other classes who went to the party, one of them made Zhao Yuan's class hate him. That person had a good relationship with the prettiest girl in their class, and they often switched shifts. When he went to the party, he stood next to the prettiest girl in their class. Sigh. At that time, Zhao Yuan felt that the pH value of the boys in his class was plummeting. That was why Xiong always targeted those people. It had been almost 2 days since they received the milk tea powder. Fu Lei didn't want to drink it because he had fought with those people before. Xiong almost drank it, but he was stopped by his mother. His mother felt that the milk tea was of poor quality, and the powder was clumped. She was afraid that drinking it would harm the body, so she threw it away. As for Zhao Yuan and Lan Tianzhu, they didn't want to drink from strangers, especially from people they didn't like. The most special one among them was Suen. He didn't want to drink it, but he wanted to use it for an experiment. However, he didn't have time. After receiving a call from Zhao Yuan, Suen squeezed out some time to do a quality test. The next day, after Zhao Yuan went home for dinner, he told Zhao Ma that he wanted to play with Suen and the others. Zhao Ma didn't think much of it. The boys played basketball together all the time, so there was nothing to worry about. But when Zhang Tan saw Zhao Yuan put the milk tea powder that was supposed to be thrown away in the trash bin into his pocket, his nerves snapped, and he quickly followed Zhao Yuan out. Zhao Ma didn't say anything when she saw Zhang Tan go out. Anyway, the more he played off-road, the more he would go out for a walk after dinner. Zhao Yuan saw that Zhang Tan kept following Zhang Tan and didn't want to leave, so he didn't say anything more. Instead, he took Zhang Tan to Suen's house. Zhao Yuan, Xiong, Suen, Lan Tianzhu, and Fu Lei always played together. Fu Lei didn't fight much after he started hanging out with Zhao Yuan and the others. His grades did improve a little. Although it wasn't enough to make him the best, it was always good to have some improvement. Fu Lei's father was so happy that he couldn't look at him. When Zhang Tan and Zhao Yuan arrived at Suen's house, Lan Tianzhu was already there. Fu Lei and Xiong arrived after a while. Suen's father was busy in the courtyard, and his mother went to the gymnasium to practice dancing. There were no adults at home. They were a little surprised to see Zhang Tan, but they didn't ask much. They had been with Zhang Tan for a long time, so some things weren't strange. "Did you bring everything?" Suen asked. They took out the milk tea powder in their hands, and Suen marked them one by one. Then, he took out a foam box from the windowsill. There were a few small bottles of reagents in it. "Suen, did you make these yourself?" Zhao Yuan asked. "No, my dad is very strict. The master students and doctoral students under him will make a detour when they see me." They are afraid that I will ask them for reagents. I had to ask Litmus for help to get these things. As Suan spoke, he put on his white coat, put on a pair of small gloves, and put on a professional face mask. Zhang Tan's eyes twitched as he looked at him. He didn't look like a junior high school student at all. The fully armed, Suan opened his study room. Other people's study rooms were different from his. Although the study room wasn't big, there was a partition. There was a simple ventilation cabinet near the inside. Suan carried the box into the compartment and closed the transparent door. He asked the others to wait outside. Zhang Tan watched as Suan cut open the milk tea that Zhao Yuan and the others gave him. He took out a few small test tubes that were marked and poured some milk into each of them. Then he started a series of tests. What's the one marked Ma 2? Xiong looked through the glass partition door and saw the words marked on the test tubes. He knew the words iodine and potassium iodide, sodium nitrite, etc., but he didn't understand the one marked Ma 2. Ma Gai reagent upgraded version 2, Zhao Yuan said. He already knew the truth. What did he say before? Fu Lei asked curiously. Lan Tianju's face turned cold as she saw Fu Lei and Xiong were still confused. Lan Tianju explained briefly, amphetamine. Fu Lei and Xiong almost screamed when they heard the sensitive words. Especially Xiong. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of affecting Suan, he would have screamed. Although he couldn't scream, Xiong still took a deep breath and cursed, Mother Vastarus Cur! I will let him know what it means to be unforgettable. Lan Tianju looked at him and said, unforgettable is a bit of a compliment. Xiong. He thought for a while but still couldn't think of a better word. He said, just teach them a lesson. Teach them a good lesson. Fu Lei also clenched his fists. He was obviously very angry. Lan Tianju and I went to his grandfather's garden last week to extract something. We will treat them well when the time comes, Zhao Yuan said. At this time, Suan also finished the test. How is it? They all looked at Suan. It's the same as my bag. Suan pointed to the transparent test tubes in the ventilation cabinet. The liquid had changed from milky white to orange red. It's most likely amphetamine. However, the reagents are limited, so the test results are not absolute. A small part of it may be ketamine. It's okay. As long as we know there's poison in it, it's fine. Xiong was already thinking about how to take revenge. Fu Lei gave Suan a thumbs up. He saw Suan's operation inside and felt that his movements were smoother than the chemistry teachers in school. Suan waved his hand modestly. My cousin used to make ice with cold medicine. That's awesome. Xiong and Fu Lei's mouths were wide open. Yeah, then he was beaten up by his father and had to lie in bed for half a month. Suan pursed his lips. That stuff is illegal. Lying in bed for half a month is better than squatting in a cell. Then how am I going to identify this kind of stuff when I see it in the future? I can't show it to you every time, right? Xiong asked worriedly. Xiong was the most worrisome among them. His knowledge was limited, and he was slightly careless. Haven't you heard of this saying? Suan said, Bingdu is methamphetamine. It's like rock sugar, but it's not sweet. Fen looks like salt, but it's like milk. My dad told me this when I was in junior high. Just remember it. However, it's not easy to identify things that are mixed with other things. Anyway, don't eat things given by strangers. Don't fall for it in the future. As for Zhang Tan, he was dumbfounded. Chapter 272. Since they had confirmed that there was indeed something inside, the five of them started to think about what to do next. Zhang Tan was sweating profusely as he listened to them talk about revenge methods. He felt that these kids who had grown up were much better than him when he was younger. Back then, he had always thought that he was the devil's incarnate, but compared to these guys, he was nothing. Should we tell Mom and Dad about this? Xiong asked uncertainly. Don't. Tell them that we can forget about going out to play in the future, Suan objected. Zhao Yuan and the others nodded in agreement. Why don't we call the police? Xiong asked. Do you still want to hide it from the police? Unless it's anonymous. If it's anonymous, why don't you go? I have a voice changer with me, Suan said. Zhang Tan was speechless. A voice changer. What the hell were these guys doing? Then let's settle it in private. Xiong shook his head. Xiong was a little against calling the police. He had called the police too many times when he was younger, and he was traumatized from kneeling on a washboard. Usually, things like this were not a big deal to Xiong, so he would not call the police easily. What if they harm other people in the future? What about the people who provided them with the things? Zhao Yuan asked. The few of them fell silent. After a while, they sighed heavily. Let's teach them a lesson first. We can plan the rest. Lan Tianzhu scratched his head. After all, they were still kids. There were many things that were not easy to do, and they could not do everything well. They did not plan to tell their parents, teachers, or the police. They even came up with a plan. Zheng Tan did not know how to evaluate these kids anymore. However, when they were coming up with the plan for revenge, Zheng Tan thought that it would be more convenient for him to call the police. Just like what Zhao Yuan said, he could not let those who spread this thing continue to harm other students. In fact, Zheng Tan didn't care about other people, but this time, it involved Zhao Yuan and the others, which made Zheng Tan angry. Hey, Suan, I still have a few cartons of milk. My dad bought them at a special price from the supermarket. Do you need me to bring them to you for a quality test? Fu Lei asked before leaving. Have you tried it? Suan asked. I've been drinking for half a month. Are you all right? Nothing happened at all. That's enough. There's no need to test it. Suan said, if you're worried, you can bring a bottle over. Let's come up with an experiment plan first. We'll need to look at the culture of the bacteria. I can't get my hands on an incubator, so you can ask Zhao Yuan for help. You can also test the bacteria directly in the lab, not here. After all, this was a place where they lived. The incubator was only used for convenience and emergencies. It wasn't used often. If they could bring it to the lab, Suan wouldn't do it at home. This time, they had no choice but to do it at home because they couldn't let others know. Yes, I can help with that. I've tested the bacteria in tap water and the cafeteria's soy milk several times. It's more familiar. Zhao Yuan nodded. However, his dad probably wouldn't say anything about it. After leaving Suan's house, Zheng Tan didn't go back directly with Zhao Yuan. Instead, he ran to the grove at the edge of the campus and started texting. He hadn't touched his phone for a few days. When he opened his phone, he saw several messages and missed calls from Luo. After scrolling through them, Zheng Tan was annoyed. Originally, he just wanted to set Zhang Dong up once. Whether or not Zhang Dong stole the 28,000 yuan phone, as long as he kept an eye on him, he would find something wrong. Then, he would teach Zhang Dong a lesson. He didn't expect that Zhang Dong really did steal the phone. From Luo's messages, Zhang Tan knew that Zhang Dong had dragged him into a quagmire. Fortunately, his situation was special and he had to be discreet. Otherwise, he would really be in trouble. Zhang Tan didn't want to answer Luo's questions. Thinking about the milk tea powder and Suan's test results, Zhang Tan wrote a message. He briefly mentioned the milk tea powder and the cleanup operation before the new year. He also mentioned Suan's test results. He even wrote down the names of the junior high school students that Zhao Yuan had mentioned. He said that it would be faster to solve the case. If he didn't solve this case, Zheng Tan wouldn't feel good. After writing the message, Zhang Tan paused. Logically speaking, it would be best to inform senior brother Walnut directly. Furthermore, he was an acquaintance, and Zhang Tan knew senior brother Walnut's character. He would definitely investigate to the end and clean up everything thoroughly. That way, Zheng Tan would feel more at ease. However, Zhang Tan could not recall senior brother Walnut's phone number. Walnut Sr. couldn't do it. Zhang Tan had a good impression of Luo, so he sent it to him. However, Luo was just a small patrol officer. He was far less capable than Walnut Sr., so he didn't know how this case would turn out. At worst, he could just send Walnut Sr.'s phone number again after he got it. Luo had just returned home and was about to take a shower when he was called by an auntie upstairs to help her move a set of furniture. It was on the 5th floor. After moving up and down, he was so tired that he was covered in sweat. As soon as he stepped into the bathroom, Luo heard the sound of a text message. Ever since the last time the number with 4XS had sent him a text message, Luo had changed his phone's text message tone. During non-working hours, the text message tone was set to a more audible ding-ding sound. The number had been turned off for the past few days. Luo and his colleagues all thought that the person had probably changed their number and wouldn't continue using it. Even so, when he heard the text message, Luo immediately walked back to the bedroom and picked up his phone to take a look. The number displayed on the screen made Xiao Luo happy. However, after opening the message, Xiao Luo's face immediately turned serious. The matter mentioned in the message was much more serious than stealing a phone. With his previous experience, Xiao Luo's intuition told him that this matter was real. Luo had been in this line of work for many years. Of course, he could guess the severity of the situation. It was very difficult for a small patrol officer like him to deal with it. There was a saying, "If you have the conditions, do it. If you don't, create the conditions and continue to do it." If he couldn't handle it himself, he could ask for help. Moreover, he knew a few people in the criminal investigation unit and had been in contact with them. For a period of time, in order to effectively prevent and crack down on all kinds of crimes and strengthen the basic infrastructure at the grassroots level, they had contacted the people in the criminal investigation unit. Later, because of a few friends, he gradually became familiar with the two people in the criminal investigation unit. However, they were usually busy and didn't have much time to get together. After thinking it through, Luo opened his address book and dialed a number. After sending the text message, Zhang Tan turned off his phone again and went home to sleep. When Luo called back after talking to someone, he found that the number was turned off again. A few days later, Zhang Tan was sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper that he hadn't read for a while. He found that Zhang Dong's matter was mentioned, but his name wasn't directly mentioned. Instead, it was replaced by Zhang. While he was reading, Zhao Yuan and the others came back. Zhao Yuan seemed to be a little excited today. While Zhao Ma was cooking, he turned on the computer and logged into the chatting app to chat with his friends about the topic that they hadn't finished talking about. Zhang Tan jumped onto the table and took a look. He found that the kids were talking about the milk tea powder in the group that they had created. Now, there was no need for the five-man plan. The police directly went to the place, raided a few places, and found out the batch of goods that had been leaked. Several junior high school students involved had taken a few days off, but most of the students in the school did not pay attention to it. Zhao Yuan and the others had probably heard about it through some of their own channels, and now they were excitedly chatting in a small group. Zhang Tan nodded in his heart. Luo's team was quite efficient. Zhang Tan didn't continue to watch Zhao Yuan and the others chat. He was about to jump off the table and go to the living room to continue reading the newspaper when he suddenly saw the phone book next to the landline. He looked at Zhao Yuan. He was busy typing, so Zhang Tan walked over to the phone book. With his back facing Zhao Yuan, he casually bent his paw and flipped open the book. There were many phone numbers, including Air Mao's, Celestine's, Zhao Li's, and even Walnut's personal phone number. Black Charcoal, what are you doing? Zhao Yuan turned his head and asked. Zhang Tan closed the phone book and looked at Zhao Yuan. Zhao Yuan had a look of realization. You are waiting for a call? Then, he said with anger and jealousy. You want to go out and play again, right? Oh my god, even cats have a better life than humans. Zhao Yuan had always envied Zhang Tan for being able to go out and play with Air Mao and Celestine. Zhang Tan. What a funny kid. But it was true that he hadn't gone out to play in a long time. Air Mao was often caught by his family to go on blind dates, and Celestine was a good husband at home. When Zhang Tan turned on his phone again, he saw a lot of messages. Most of them were from Luo, and the rest were spam messages or messages from carriers. From Xiao Luo's initial inquiry to his subsequent gratitude, Zhang Tan could feel the change in Xiao Luo's mood from these few messages. It seemed that Luo was doing well these few days. Luo was indeed doing well, and he had made a contribution this time. Coincidentally, the higher-ups were planning to use a few positive examples to promote and improve the public's attitude towards them. Luo happened to be one of the positive examples. He had to write a report and summarize the case, cooperate with the station and the bureau's promotion work, deal with the reporters, hold meetings, give out awards, and so on. He was very busy these few days, but he was happy to be busy. Perhaps this case wouldn't attract too much attention, but Luo's life had undergone a huge change. Because not long after, he was transferred to the criminal police unit and became a criminal police officer. Recently, the branch's criminal police unit was short of people, and this incident made Luo stand out. The young man looked dumb, but he wasn't brainless. He was a good person. He had both theoretical knowledge and rich practical experience at the grassroots level. Plus, a few people at the branch spoke up for him. Just like that, Luo was transferred over. The development of the incident was too sudden, and the turn of events was too fast. These changes were beyond Luo's expectations. Not long ago, he was still listening to lectures at the food stall, and now he was transferred to become a criminal police officer. Luo had always wanted to be a criminal police officer. Although it might be a little dangerous, Luo was willing to do so, and this could be considered as fulfilling his wish. On the other side, Zhang Tan looked at the caller ID on his phone. It wasn't Luo or teacher Little Bai, but from a carrier. Curious, Zhang Tan answered the call. Then, a pleasant female voice came from the other side. Just by listening to the voice, Zhang Tan gave a good review, but what the other party was talking about made Zhang Tan want to curse. VIP user? It sounded very high-end, but F*** King ID card information. F***K. Was he supposed to send a cat tag to the other party? Chapter 273. Zhang Tan didn't have an ID card in real life, so he decided to look for his presence on the internet. Zhang Tan had heard that the small celebrities would try to create news about themselves from time to make their presence known. Zhang Tan did not think it was necessary for him to do so. Every now and then, the pet center would release some videos and post them on the forum, and the response was quite good. Zhang Tan thought that he should have some fame now, so the response should be good. Although Zhang Tan usually acted like he didn't care about the videos and commercials he shot, he still liked to browse the forums to see what people said about him. When he saw those praises, Zhang Tan rationally felt that it was not difficult at all, but he couldn't help but feel proud. It felt pretty good. In this day and age, to browse the forums and watch videos, one had to go online and touch the computer. After the Jiao Pa came back, Zhang Tan secretly went online. It was too troublesome to use a mobile phone at this time, and many functions were not perfect. It was better to just turn on the computer directly. It had been too long since he touched the computer, and he couldn't use it every day. Zhang Tan was bored, so he took a risk. After that time, Zhang Tan anxiously waited for the Jiao Pa to talk to him. He felt that the Jiao Pa was someone who even knew which websites the Jiao Yuan visited. Even if he deleted the records, there would always be some traces left. Now, the Jiao Pa used the computer every day. But after waiting for a few days, the Jiao Pa was still the same as usual. He didn't want to talk to Zhang Tan at all. Zhang Tan was relieved. Although he always felt that the Jiao Pa should know something, he didn't care. If the Jiao Pa didn't say anything, he would continue to play. There was no one at home. Zhang Tan turned on the computer and clicked on a video-sharing website. After all, the forum was just a gathering of people in a certain circle who had a common hobby. On the video-sharing website, there were people of all ages and industries. This should be a better way to see his influence. In the video website category, there was a new advertisement shot by Zhang Tan last week. The ranking was not bad. It was different from the previous sensational or narrative types. This time, it was in a rock and roll style. A certain carbonated beverage company even sponsored it. Zhang Tan felt that the commercial was not bad and that he had shot it well. However, when he looked at the comments below, Zhang Tan was not in a good mood. Below the video, in the comment section where netizens expressed their opinions. First floor, milk tea, melon seeds, cola peanuts, on the second floor, asking for the number of the avatar above. Third floor, what's the background music? Please tell me, fourth floor. That big-breasted girl inside looks pretty good. Does anyone know her? Zhang Tan. Suddenly, he wanted to smash the keyboard and give those people the middle finger. Such a big cat was on the stage, yet no one was paying attention to it. They were all looking at the beauties. Almost half of the people on the 10th floor had gone astray. Most of the remaining people's attention was on the hot girl inside. Although Zhang Tan admitted that he had quite a good time working with that girl when he was shooting the commercial, he could not help but feel jealous now. Zhang Tan also suddenly realized that he had been thinking too highly of himself. After all, cats were not humans. At this time, everyone on the internet was scrambling to find their own interests. Who cared about what kind of cat was inside? At most, they would just say a few words and forget about it. The focus was still on the person. Although he felt that if there were not so many people paying attention to him, he would have more freedom. However, when he really faced reality, he could not help but feel unhappy. Since he was unhappy, Zhang Tan planned to find some fun himself. After turning off his phone and going out, Zhang Tan strolled around the school. He wandered to the kindergarten. Zhang Tan had originally planned to go around it, but after thinking about it, he decided to go and see how Zhuo Xiaomao tricked people. At this time, Zhuo Xiaomao's class had just finished their indoor class. A group of children yelled and ran towards the yard where there were slides, inflatable castles, and other things. They were afraid that they would not be able to grab them if they were too slow. Behind them, Teacher Xiao Bai and another teacher were reminding everyone not to run too fast and to pay attention to their feet. After Zhang Tan looked at Zhuo Xiaomao, who was walking out calmly, his gaze fell on another person sitting in the small yard. On a wooden chair by the side of the small yard where all kinds of fun items were placed, sat a woman that Zhang Tan knew. At this time, the woman was looking at the children in the yard with a gentle gaze. After Zhuo Xiaomao walked out, she mainly looked in Zhuo Xiaomao's direction with a slight smile on her face. People who did not know would think that Zhuo Xiaomao's mother was here. Unfortunately, it was not. This woman was Celestine's wife. According to what Zhang Tan knew from Mao, Celestine's wife should be more than 4 months pregnant, right? Moreover, it was said that Celestine's wife had been in a traffic accident and was not in good health. Although she tried her best to recuperate over the years, Celestine was still worried. He had been asking people to take good care of her. Other than going to work, Celestine was also at home to accompany her. Why was she here? Did she want to see more children after having children? But she did not have to stare at Zhuo Xiaomao all the time. Teacher Xiao Bai was paying attention to the children. She knew that this person wanted to sit alone, so she did not disturb her. Many teachers who taught elementary schools also required enough peace and patience. Perhaps it was because they felt the peaceful aura of this unfamiliar aunt. The children did not feel restrained or uncomfortable. They continued to play on their own. Some of the bolder and more lively ones even came over to say a few words. Zhuo Xiaomao was pulled over to help put together a dinosaur with toys. Then, she walked over to Celestine's wife. "Auntie, why do you keep looking at me? Are you a new teacher?" Although Zhuo Xiaomao could speak a lot, some words were not very clear. People who did not interact with her often needed some time to react. Celestine's wife paused and smiled. "I'm not a new teacher. I'm looking at you because you're very cute." She was just bored at home. Her neighbor was a teacher at Fu Elementary School. When they were chatting, the neighbor mentioned Zhuo Xiaomao, who had entered Tsinghua University's kindergarten when he was 2.5 years old and was doing very well. She came out to take a look. With one look, she had to admit that this child was indeed smart. "Thank you for the compliment." Zhuo Xiaomao replied politely. Then, she was about to leave when she was called to talk for a while. Knowing that the aunt in front of her had a baby, Zhuo Xiaomao looked curiously at her stomach and said, "When I was young, yes, very young. When I was still in my mother's stomach, my mother said that Brother He even hit my palm." Hearing Zhuo Xiaomao mention him, Zhang Tan's ears immediately perked up. Brother He. Celestine's wife didn't quite understand what Zhuo Xiaomao meant by Brother He. She just thought that it was someone Zhuo Xiaomao knew. "Yes, I heard from an uncle that many people used to think that I would grow very thin and weak. But auntie, look, I'm very strong now." Zhuo Xiaomao rolled up his sleeves and bent his arm to show Celestine's wife his strong muscles. Zhang Tan. This silly child. He weighed so little. What kind of muscles did he have? Strong my ass. That wasn't all. Zhuo Xiaomao extended his arm in front of Celestine's wife. "Auntie, if you don't believe me, you can touch it. Is it very strong?" "Haha, I don't let ordinary people touch it." Zhang Tan. He couldn't bear to watch anymore. He didn't see this little guy scamming people. Instead, he saw how stupid he was. Even the most intelligent person would make stupid mistakes sometimes. Moreover, he was a little kid. Celestine's wife smiled and reached out to gently pinch the little guy's arm. Then, she pinched Zhuo Xiaomao's face. "You're indeed a little strong man." Of course, Zhuo Xiaomao's eyes narrowed as she smiled. Just as Zhang Tan was lamenting how this lousy kid could be so stupid, he heard Zhuo Xiaomao say in a very proud tone, "My mom said that I can grow so strong because of Brother He. Brother He is very good to me." Zhuo Xiaomao took out the pendant she had been wearing. "Here, this was also given by Brother He. Auntie said that this thing can't be bought even if you have money." Celestine's wife looked carefully at the green plant inside the transparent pendant. She was very surprised. Then she felt that this thing was probably man-made. It shouldn't exist in nature, right? Although she was suspicious, Celestine's wife still smiled and said, "Yes, it's very precious. Your brother is very good to you." Of course, Zhuo Xiaomao carefully put the pendant back into her collar. She glanced at Zhang Tan by the wall and immediately ran over with a smile. "Brother He! Brother He!" Celestine's wife looked in Zhuo Xiaomao's direction. When she saw the cat on the wall, she was a little surprised. She looked carefully and then asked Teacher Xiaobai, who was not far away, "Teacher Xiaobai, is that cat called black charcoal?" "Yes, it's called black charcoal. The children in the class all call it Brother He like Zhuoyang." Teacher Xiaobai told her about the black cat. "So, Brother He is this cat." Celestine's wife thought to herself. Looking at the interaction between the man and the cat, Celestine's wife sat for a while. Then, she got up and prepared to leave. She was able to enter the kindergarten to take a look because she asked the neighbor for help. This trip was not in vain. Zhang Tan watched as Celestine's wife walked out of the kindergarten. An auntie went up to her. She was probably a nanny or something like that. Then, the two of them left together. Celestine returned home at night. He hugged his wife and kissed her forehead. "How did it feel to go out for a walk today?" "It was fine." "All right, Celestine, next time when we invite Senior Walnut and Air Mao over, let's invite Black Charcoal along," Celestine's wife said. Celestine raised his eyebrows. After his wife got pregnant, when he invited Senior Walnut and Air Mao over for dinner, he mentioned that Air Mao should also bring Zhang Tan back. He didn't expect his mother-in-law, who came to visit her daughter, to find out. She scolded Celestine for a long time. Her words were very repulsive towards Zhang Tan. Ever since she found out that her daughter was pregnant, she couldn't wait to get rid of all the potential threats around her. "You still want to bring them in?" Celestine wasn't in a good mood at that time. If it wasn't for his wife, he would have fallen out with his mother-in-law. He didn't expect his wife to bring it up herself now. "Okay, I'll see when Senior Walnut and Air Mao have time to come over for a gathering. Also, bring Black Charcoal along. I haven't seen that guy in a long time. Hey, I wonder if he's gotten fatter." Thus, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, Air Mao came over to bring Zhang Tan to Celestine's place for dinner. Chapter 274. Celestine's house was located in a small district not far from Tsinghua University. When Zhang Tan and Air Mao arrived, Celestine was busy in the kitchen. The table was already filled with dishes, and the house was filled with the aroma of food. "Yo, Senior Wei, your cooking skills have improved." Air Mao looked at the table full of dishes and said. Ever since his wife was pregnant, Celestine had always hired a nanny to cook. Sometimes, when the nanny was not around, he would personally cook. Today, when they gathered together, Celestine did not ask the nanny to come over. Celestine took out a few steamed dishes and placed them on the table. He patted Air Mao's head and said, "What are you talking about?" With one look, I can tell that this was ordered by the hotel. Air Mao laughed. He could tell that he was just teasing Celestine. "Black Charcoal, long time no see. Go and find something to play with," Celestine said to Zhang Tan, who was sitting on the sofa, and ran back to the kitchen to take out the dishes. When Zhang Tan heard Celestine's words, why did it feel like he was talking to a child? Senior Walnut arrived half an hour later. When he saw Zhang Tan, he was surprised. He knew that many pregnant women were very afraid of cats. When Toxoplasma gondii was mentioned, their faces would turn pale. Previously, he heard Celestine complain that his wife and mother-in-law were against bringing the black cat over. He did not expect to see the cat here today. Long time no see, Black Charcoal. They were familiar with Zhang Tan, and Zhang Tan had helped them a few times. Air Mao and the others did not have as many scruples as the others. When He Tao was peeling peanuts, he helped Zhang Tan peel a few peanuts and put them there. Celestine's wife came out to greet the guests for a while, and was urged to rest by the three of them. They heard that she had gone to the hospital for a series of checkups and was now tired. She should rest more. Anyway, they were familiar with each other, so there was no need to be polite. There were 4 stools beside the table. One of the stools was even raised. It was for Zhang Tan. Sharing a table with a cat, the 3 of them didn't think much of it. This kind of situation was common when they went to the night building, so it wasn't strange. There were only a few of them here, so there weren't many rules. There are a few good newcomers recently. When I came over just now, I saw them having dinner together. I stayed there for a few drinks before coming over. I didn't even dare to drive my car, so I took a taxi. He Tao explained why he was so late. Have you settled the matter? Mao asked. When he left Chuhua City to look for He Tao, he was also involved in that matter. Now that he heard that the goods were leaked, he asked more questions. It's been dealt with. Not too much was leaked. Those people hid it very well. They only dared to take it out after half a year. I didn't expect that someone would report it soon after they took it out. Speaking of which, there's something very interesting about the person who reported this time. He's very mysterious and interesting. Since they were on the same side, there was no need to worry about secrets being leaked. After a few drinks, He Tao's chatterbox also opened up. He talked about the mysterious phone number with 466. Zhang Tan tried his best to pretend that he didn't know anything. His ears perked up as he listened to them talk. However, it seemed that Senior Walnut was quite fond of this mysterious person. Hero thief? There really is such a person, Mao said. But it sounds like this person is quite capable. But I've been in Chuhua City for so long, and I've never heard of such a person. That's called hiding your strength. Celestine was also quite curious. When the time comes, if you find out who this person is, let us know. I want to see what kind of person this new era Chu Liuxiang and domestic version of Spider-Man is. Zhang Tan ate the shrimp silently at the side. He didn't raise his head to look at them. He felt guilty, and the three sitting there were all smart people. He was afraid that he would expose himself. It seemed that he had to be more careful when using that account in the future. It was rare for the topic at the table to change. Zhang Tan raised his head. He didn't need to take the food himself. The three put a bit of everything on Zhang Tan's plate, except for the chicken but that Mao took. Zhang Tan threw that back. Mao is now mingling well in the circle of young people in Chuhua City. I always hear people talking about you. Didn't I hear someone call you second brother when I met you a while ago? You're already a brother. He Tao laughed. If not second brother, should I call him second senior brother? Mao curled his lips. Now that he had interacted with a lot of people for a long time, naturally some of them knew Mao's identity. They didn't dare to look at him based on his clothes. Who would have thought that this guy who looked like a loser would have such a strong background? When they met, they would smile and call Mao second brother. At first, Mao wasn't used to it, but after hearing so much, he let them be. Right, Mao, I heard that you quarreled with a blind date a while ago? Celestine asked. Zhang Tan looked at Mao. He liked to listen to gossip like this. Yeah, Mao said carelessly. At first, I thought she was okay. Her looks, figure, education, and personality were all good. She also liked cats and was a judge at some famous cat shows. However, when I talked to her, she always talked about some famous cats. She said that only Dragon Li and Lin Qing Chauvinist were good cats in China. From what she said, it seemed that other cats were not good enough. I was unhappy at that time. Hey, how is my black rice inferior to the fat Dragon Li downstairs? Zhang Tan was speechless. De Pang, who lived downstairs in the courtyard, was unjustly implicated. It's like she likes to wear international brands, and I like to wear clothes that I like. I don't care if it's branded or not. You can't force me to put on clothes that don't match my style, can you? Mao argued. So you got mad at her? He Tao felt that Mao was making a mountain out of a molehill. You don't have to get mad at the girl. If you do that, when will the blind date be successful? Celestine also scolded. Zhang Tan thought to himself that Mao was probably the only one who would compare a cat to a piece of clothing. Then what are you going to do now? Do you continue the blind date if it fails? He Tao asked. Mao's face was full of smiles. Who said I failed? I'm getting along well with Gong Qin. He Tao and Celestine were speechless. What kind of pot was it? One of them had cat paw prints on his arm all year round, and the two of them could play in a 70-square-meter house for an entire afternoon. The other one was yelled at by Mao, but didn't get slapped in the face. Instead, she forgave him, apologized, and continued to get along with him. Two masochists. He Tao looked at Celestine. Are all cat owners like this? Probably. Zhang Tan didn't think about the personality of cat owners. He was thinking that the name Gong Qin sounded familiar. After thinking for a while, he remembered that there was a female judge named Gong Qin at the cat show. Could it be her? Right, I almost forgot. Yi Hao's Triumph is about to open. I have a private room there. Mao, you and Black Charcoal's private rooms have already been prepared. Our private rooms are next to each other. When the time comes, Yi Hao will have someone send the cards directly to you. As for Senior's room, you have a special identity. It's better if you don't go to that kind of place. Hey, so I don't have to go too far in the future. Although Triumph is not as stylish as Night Building, it's still okay to treat people to a meal, drink, and have fun. Black Charcoal, let's go take a look at it before it opens. If there's anything inappropriate, let's tell them in advance and let them rest. Mao rubbed his hands and kicked Zhang Tan's stool. The Triumph that Celestine mentioned was actually a clubhouse that Yi Hao and the others had built at the newly built Hengwu Commercial Plaza near Tsinghua University. After Triumph was built, Zhang Tan would have a place to play. Even without a driver, he could walk there by himself. Therefore, when he heard the news, Zhang Tan was very happy. Triumph opened at the beginning of October. At that time, the Hengwu Commercial Plaza was basically completed. All the roads had already been opened to traffic, and the flow of people and vehicles had skyrocketed. During the National Day holiday, the Hengwu Commercial Plaza also held an event. In addition to the people in the vicinity, students from the nearby universities also flocked there. For a time, the popularity of the place surpassed that of the Central Plaza. The Central Plaza was filled with uncles and aunties, while the Hengwu Commercial Plaza was filled with young people and students. The styles of both sides were beginning to show. It was obvious that both sides had plans for development. Before this, Mao and Zhang Tan had gone to see their own private rooms. Yi Hao didn't have time, and Ran Qi was afraid of Zhang Tan, so it was Leopard who personally led them to see it. The layout was similar to that of the Night Building, but there was no division of north, south, east, and west. Also, there weren't many internationally famous bands playing there. In fact, the styles of those internationally famous bands with some history weren't accepted by many students nowadays. To them, those bands had never been heard of in the country. Even if they had heard of them, they wouldn't buy it. In order to promote the opening, Triumph invited several well-known bands in the mainland. This kind of well-known talent was more attractive, and among them was Ah Jin's band. Speaking of Ah Jin, they were no longer the small band they were 2 years ago. After participating in several elective competitions, they were gradually being sought after by some young people through packaging, promotion, and the operation of an experienced team. This time, some university students came for Ah Jin's band. The people of Tsinghua University's Guitar Association received 10 free coupons from Ah Jin, and the seating area was not bad. Those students didn't expect that the external aid they accidentally invited would reach such heights today. Now, the school's Guitar Association didn't even need to advertise to recruit new members, and all kinds of people volunteered to sacrifice themselves for the band. The opening ceremony of Triumph started at 7 o'clock in the evening. Zhang Tan finished dinner at 5 o'clock, and was dragged over by Mao. After arriving, Mao carried a pet bag filled with black rice and took Gong Qin to his exclusive private room to spend their time together. As for Zhang Tan, he was bored here alone. After rolling around on the sofa, he decided to go out for a walk. It was too lonely to be here alone. The people in the corridor had been briefed. Moreover, the people selected by Yi Hao weren't ignorant and inexperienced. When Zhang Tan walked in front of them, they didn't put on unnecessary unpleasant expressions. After coming out of Triumph, Zhang Tan didn't walk far before he saw several familiar figures. It was the 5 boys of Jiao Yuan. During the National Day holiday, the Jiao family didn't go far. Jiao Pa was still busy and couldn't leave. The other 3 members of the Jiao family continued to stay at home. The others probably didn't have any plans tonight, so they gathered around Hengwu Plaza to stroll around and watch the fun. Children at this age were energetic and full of curiosity. However, at this time, there were other people around Jiao Yuan and the other 4. It seemed that the 2 sides didn't get along well. Chapter 275. Zhang Tan had once heard Jiao Yuan complain about a few things in school. Jiao Yuan's class and Class 5 were at odds with each other. From the sports meet to the basketball competition, to the end-of-semester evaluation, from the top students to the bottom, Everyone knew that one shouldn't talk about how good Class 5 was in Class 1, nor should they talk about how awesome Class 1 was in Class 5. Even if you really thought that Class 1 was good, you still had to hold it in. Otherwise, it would cause public outrage. And one of the reasons for this was because of the two class teachers. The two teachers had been at loggerheads for a long time. Usually, when they held class meetings to talk about negative examples, Class 5's teacher would always bring up Class 1's. Back in the first grade, Fu Lei was still the Lone Ranger who was at the bottom of the class. He was often criticized by Class 5's teacher as an example. In private, Class 5's teacher even said that Fu Lei was a stinky piece of dog shit. Because of this, Fu Lei had always held a grudge against him. As for the two classes' outstanding examples, they wouldn't talk about them as much as possible. But once you made a mistake, there would be no room for discussion. The ones who would criticize Zhao Yuan and the other high school teachers' children the most were those from Class 5. The students from the other classes were just waiting to watch a good show. In every grade, there was competition between classes. If Class 1 and Class 5 were to fight fiercely, they would just watch from the sidelines. There was no need for them to get involved. Those two were not to be trifled with. What's wrong? What are you doing here? Obedient children. A boy who was about the same age as Zhao Yuan said arrogantly. There were quite a few students from Class 5. Even if they weren't from Class 5, they could be from other classes. They were all about the same age, so in Zhang Tan's eyes, they were still very young. You haven't been in here before, right? The boy pointed at the triumph behind him and taunted Zhao Yuan and the others. He seemed to be mocking Zhao Yuan and the others for being ignorant. Heh, come to think of it, you're all obedient children. Karaoke, dance hall, bar, game room. Which one of you dare to go? Zhao Yuan and the others were silent. In fact, they had been to all of these places before. It was just that they didn't want to say it out loud. Wouldn't that be courting death? If he went back, he would be scolded. They were not like the people in front of him, who flaunted their rebellious deeds as a halo. According to the relevant laws and regulations of the country, some commercial entertainment establishments are not suitable for minors to enter. In some places, this is a ban, Zhao Yuan said confidently without changing his expression. Su An and the others glanced at Zhao Yuan and continued to remain silent. They definitely didn't feel guilty. When they heard what Zhao Yuan said, they all burst into laughter. It was as if Zhao Yuan had said something funny. They all looked down on Zhao Yuan and the others, thinking that Zhao Yuan and the others were cowards. Xiong was about to retaliate when he was pulled back by Lan Tianzhu. There's no need to waste time talking nonsense with these lunatics. Let's go check out other places. Xiong thought for a moment and agreed. Their time here was limited. If they returned late, they would definitely be punished according to the family rules. Moreover, if they got into a conflict here, a simple investigation would reveal the cause. Even if they weren't the ones looking for trouble, once their families found out, they could forget about coming here to play in the future. There was no need to accompany these idiots in their nonsense. Zhao Yuan and the others had just taken a step when they were blocked by the people in front of them. The person who spoke just now was about to step forward and say something, but Fu Lei pushed Zhao Yuan and Suan back and warmed up his fists. He glared at the person in front of him with an unfriendly expression. When the person saw Fu Lei approaching, he hurriedly took a few steps back. He knew that Fu Lei was good at fighting. When he was in the first grade, he had beaten up the third grade students. He didn't want to be beaten up, but if he retreated too quickly, it would make him look like he was afraid of Fu Lei and lose face among his friends. Before he could say anything, he heard a voice behind him. Aya, aren't you the 5 tyrants of Class 1? When they heard this voice, Zhao Yuan and the others' expressions changed. The people in Class 5 were easy to deal with, but this person. He didn't come with good intentions. The people in Class 5 didn't charge forward and immediately retreated. A few of them even wanted to sneak away. They didn't dare to offend this person. Some time ago, they heard that these people were either expelled or transferred to another school for unknown reasons. They didn't expect to meet this person here. They didn't look at the almanac before they left the house today. Their luck was really bad. Zhang Tan, who had been observing the situation from the side, saw the people who were dressed very maturely. They didn't look easy to deal with. The people in front of him tried their best to act arrogant, but they still looked like students. However, these people seemed like they were already in the underworld. Even though they looked very young, their clothes made them look older. The people next to them were slightly older. They were probably from a nearby high school or were already in the underworld. The person who spoke just now threw the cigarette in his mouth on the ground and crushed it with his foot. He looked at Zhao Yuan and the others with a gloomy expression. Good, I want to have a good chat with you guys too. After these people appeared, Zhang Tan could clearly feel Zhao Yuan and the others' nervousness. Even Fu Lei, who was always fearless and had the biggest fist, looked very serious. Listening to the rest of their conversation, Zhang Tan deduced that these people were related to the milk tea fan incident from a while ago. When Fu Lei called out the name of the leader, Zhang Tan remembered that this person was in the message he sent to Luo. He heard from Zhao Yuan that this person was the most difficult to deal with among the people who gave them the milk tea powder. He was said to be in the underworld. After the incident, the school said that he was expelled, but in fact, it was more serious. He was detained and a few of them were sent to re-education. However, since this person was able to stand here, he must have some tricks up his sleeves. From what this person said, he felt that he almost got himself into trouble. Zhao Yuan and the others were the ones who helped him. How could he let this go? Just as a fight was about to break out, a voice suddenly interrupted. Sorry to disturb you, but if you want to communicate, please don't do it here. The words were very polite, but the voice carried a strong sense of warning, and it was not to be refused. Zhang Tan looked over and saw that the person was wearing Triumph's security uniform. Because Triumph had strict requirements for their personnel's appearance, even a security guard looked quite dignified. What's more, these people were originally selected and trained by Yihao, so they didn't care about this kind of high school kids' tricks. Since they'd recently opened for business, these brats couldn't fight here. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good for their reputation. If they got into a fight today, people would talk about how bad the security around Victorious Return was tomorrow. If that happened, they'd lose their jobs. Bossy didn't give them such a high salary just to be a bystander. These hot-headed brats, who loved to cause trouble for no reason, ran over here to play. Weren't they just causing trouble for them? The person who was very arrogant just a moment ago shrank back when he saw the security guard's eyes. Then, he saw the Triumph badge on his chest and hurriedly handed him a cigarette. He said with a smile, I'm really sorry, we'll leave now. Normally, he could throw his weight around and claim to be a member of the underworld, but that was only among the students who didn't understand anything. He didn't have the guts to face the people from Victorious Return. He knew full well just what kind of people were behind Victorious Return. The security guard raised his hand to block the cigarette, and looked at the person who handed him the cigarette with a professional smile. Thank you for your cooperation. Although the security guard was smiling, the person who handed him the cigarette was sweating profusely. The hand holding the cigarette trembled slightly. He felt that in front of this person, he didn't have the courage to raise his head. No matter how he looked at the security guard's smile, he felt a chill in his heart. However, that person didn't intend to let Zhao Yuan and the others off so easily. He signaled a few of his companions to keep an eye on Zhao Yuan and the others, then changed to another place to have a good chat. Zhao Yuan was thinking about how to get away when he suddenly felt a push from behind and a weight on his shoulder. Oh my God! Black Charcoal, what are you doing here? Zhao Yuan was too engrossed in his thoughts just now. Being startled by Zhang Tan, he almost lost his balance and fell. The surrounding people all had different reactions to Zhang Tan's sudden appearance. No matter what they thought, Zhang Tan didn't care. Instead, he looked directly at the Triumph security guard who was about to turn around and leave to continue his patrol. The security guard felt that the sudden appearance of a cat was quite interesting. However, when he saw the round tag hanging from the cat's neck, he was startled and said, Wait a minute. The several people who were about to move paused and looked at the security guard in confusion. After the security guard walked closer, his gaze swept over Zhang Tan and paused for a moment on the round tag. Then he said to Zhao Yuan and the others, These children, please come with me. After all, he had been around for many years, so he could see the situation with a single glance. Therefore, he didn't need Zhao Yuan and the others to explain in detail. The security guard knew that if he didn't do anything, these seemingly well-behaved kids would suffer a great loss. Zhao Yuan and the others actually didn't like being called children, but this wasn't the time to be calculative. Although they were puzzled, following the security guard was better than being forced to leave by these people who obviously had bad intentions. Zhang Tan didn't need the security guard to say anything. He directly led the way, and Zhao Yuan followed behind Zhang Tan. Su En and the others looked at each other and followed. "What do we do now?" one of the people who stayed behind asked. "What else can we do?" another person said as he pointed at the Triumph security guard. "Can you enter the VIP door?" No. Even if they didn't want to, they didn't dare to enter. Zhang Tan directly led Zhao Yuan and the others through the VIP entrance. As for the security guard, he had already contacted the person in charge of VIP customers. After confirming that the round tag Zhang Tan was wearing was a genuine Triumph VIP card, he immediately contacted Leopard. Leopard was in the middle of entertaining several potential customers. When he received the call, he didn't think it was important and just sent his subordinates to deal with it. However, he didn't expect it to be about Zhang Tan. Since it involved this extremely special VIP customer, Leopard could only go in person. As it had just opened, in order to avoid some unnecessary trouble, Leopard didn't let Zhao Yuan and the others, who were obviously underage, stay inside for a long time. Instead, he sent people to send them back to Tsinghua University. On the way back to Tsinghua University, Lan Tianzhu laughed and joked. "Zhao Yuan, people go there by card, but you're going there by cat card. What VIP? Zhao Yuan." Huh. Chapter 276. Feng Baijin originally planned to play games at home tonight, but when he got home, he found that his gaming laptop had been pulled off the table by Wuxia, who was playing with the internet cable. After raising the kitten for a month, the originally thin and underdeveloped kitten was now as big as a balloon. It was strong and lively. When it was at home, it seemed to have inexhaustible energy. Feng Baijin's computer was connected to an internet cable. Wuxia pulled the internet cable and played a swing. The nearly 20,000 renminbi laptop casually placed on the table was destroyed just like that. There was a problem with the computer. Aunt Lee said to throw it away and replace it with a new one. Nowadays, the electronics industry was changing with each passing day, and all kinds of upgrades were needed to replace it with a new one. But Feng Baijin didn't want to part with it, so he rode his bicycle to the computer repair shop. In any case, he only used this computer to play games and had no other secrets, so he wasn't afraid of his information being stolen. At the computer repair shop near the school, Feng Baijin bumped into a classmate. Seeing that he didn't have any plans for the evening, the classmate directly invited him to Triumph for a drink. There were 5 people drinking here earlier, but when Zhang Tan bumped into Feng Baijin, the other 3 were preparing to go down to the venue to watch the performance. They wanted to see if they could bump into any girls along the way. That way, their night would be meaningful. Feng Baijin wasn't interested in the performance downstairs. He only came out to use the restroom. The restroom in the private room was occupied by the person with a stomach full of bitterness. He didn't want to rob him, so he came out to get some fresh air. He didn't expect to bump into Zhang Tan. Zhang Tan looked at Feng Baijin's clothes. There were several suspicious small black footprints on the clothes, which looked like cat paws. While Zhang Tan was looking at Feng Baijin was also looking at him. Feng Baijin wasn't sure that the cat at the stairs was the one he knew. After all, there were more than one black cat that looked like this, not to mention that they were in the VIP area of Triumph. Therefore, Feng Baijin didn't immediately recognize Zhang Tan. After thinking for a while, he tentatively called out, "Black charcoal." Zhang Tan looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. "Damn, it really is you." They could look the same, but the look in their eyes couldn't be fake. Feng Baijin had met this black cat that looked at him with this kind of look. "Why are you here? Professor Zhao is here?" Feng Baijin asked a few questions, but Zhang Tan couldn't answer. Feng Baijin could not stay there any longer. He glanced at Zhang Tan before heading to his classmate's room. Zhang Tan followed and prepared to watch the show. Anyway, he was bored alone in the private room. Moreover, he might witness a live show that was not suitable for children. Unfortunately, Zhang Tan was disappointed. In the private room, there was only a young man about the same age as Feng Baijin. In the small private room, he could see everything at a glance. There was not even a single girl. What the hell was he playing with? Was he drinking to drown his sorrows? Before entering the private room, Feng Baijin found a waiter and told him to come over if anyone was looking for a cat. The waiter looked at Zhang Tan and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. He then nodded at Feng Baijin with a professional smile. In fact, He had already started complaining in his heart. They couldn't do anything about it. There was no other way. The big boss had said that as long as this cat didn't cause any trouble, it could do whatever it wanted. Zhang Tan followed Feng Baijin into the private room. He knew that this private room was not as good as the one he, Mao and Celestine had, because there was no private room here. It was only reserved for VIP customers, and they couldn't see the live show below. In short, for Zhang Tan, this was just a place to chat, drink, and do things that were not suitable for children. However, it was quiet and had good privacy. Listening to the conversation between Feng Baijin and the man named Yang Pa who was drinking, Zhang Tan found out that Yang Po's girlfriend had already gone downstairs to watch the show with her best friend. Only a few of them were drinking upstairs. Now, only Yang Pa and Feng Baijin were left. Zhang Tan couldn't watch the live show today. "Hey Baijin, where did you find this cat?" Yang Pa asked when he saw the black cat walk in. "It's from the landlord's house. I think it came here to play. Someone should come looking for it later," Feng Baijin said. Because of Yang Po's mood, he didn't pay much attention to Zhang Tan. As for the card hanging around Zhang Tan's neck, very few people outside of Victorious Return would recognize it. From the waiters inside to the security guards outside of Victorious Return, they all had a booklet in their hands. On it was a list of all kinds of VIP cards. If they couldn't remember them, then they didn't need to work here. In this era, those who only had a good physique and a good appearance without a good brain would have long since been squeezed out. Since they didn't recognize the card, Feng Baijin and Yang Pa only thought that Zhang Tan was carrying a common cat card. Zhang Tan jumped onto an empty armchair and sat there to listen to the conversation between the two. Although it was said that they were drinking and chatting, in fact, it was mainly Yang Pa who was venting his frustrations. After listening to a few sentences, Zhang Tan could imagine how things would develop and how things would end. People who could get a private room to drink in Victorious Return, even if their background couldn't compare to Mao's, were definitely abundant. As for this Yang Pa, because his father had other women outside, and now he even had an illegitimate son, he was looking for people to investigate more evidence. Today, he was in a bad mood, so he grabbed a few friends to come to Victorious Return to squander money. In the end, he found that there were many people who were more arrogant than him. There were rich people, people with backgrounds, and a lot of young people with both. To sum it up, today he was pretentious but got stepped on, flaunting his wealth but got flaunted. This made Yang Pa even more unhappy. It was no wonder that he was wasting bottles of high-end wine like plain water. Zhang Tan looked at him and guessed that this person was imitating those heroes he saw on TV. He directly took a bottle and drank from it. More than half of the bottle directly spilled out from his mouth. How sad would he have to be to do such a stupid thing? After wasting another bottle of wine, Yang Pa heavily placed the empty bottle on the coffee table. After a moment of deep thought, he raised his head and asked Feng Baijin with a serious face. "Baijin, although it's rare for a well-off family like yours to be in a situation like mine, I want to ask you something." Zhang Tan. A well-off family? If Feng Baijin's family was called a well-off family, then the country would have long since entered the ranks of superpowers. It seemed that this Yang Pa didn't understand Feng Baijin's family situation, or it could be said that Feng Baijin was usually too low-key. Yang Pa felt that he was being quite tactful and didn't feel that he had said anything wrong. Feng Baijin didn't care about the wrong way of calling his name and the inappropriate choice of words. Instead, he said, "Ask away." Yang Pa let out a long sigh. "Baijin, tell me, when you're in your 50s or 60s, your hair is almost gone, your stomach can fit another person, and your face is starting to grow freckles, when you're drinking at a hotel bar, and suddenly a beautiful woman less than half your age approaches you with a hotel room key. What's the first thing you think of? Or, what's the first thing you say to her? How much?" Feng Baijin asked seriously. Yang Pa gave him a thumbs up, then lowered his head and punched the air twice with his fist. When he raised his head, he sounded a little hysterical. "Yes, yes, ah." Obviously, this woman is either special service or has bad intentions. Tell me, why would my old man think that she fell in love with him at first sight? He fell into her trap and deserved to be cheated. He's as stupid as a pig. After a pause he added, "Fortunately, I didn't inherit his incomplete IQ." Zhang Tan was speechless. Yang Pa had too much to drink. Perhaps he felt that Feng Baijin was the only one who could listen to him rant, so he ranted to his heart's content and criticized his father's crimes. Feng Baijin could only listen and didn't say much. Even when Yang Pa asked him to join in the scolding, he didn't say a word. Yang Pa could scold his father, but that was between him and his father. As an outsider, it wasn't appropriate for him to say anything. While Yang Pa was scolding his father, the phone on the coffee table rang. "Your phone." Feng Baijin pointed at the coffee table. Yang Pa was in the middle of scolding and didn't even look at the phone. He waved his hand and said, "Wait for me to finish." Zhang Tan could see the caller ID on Yang Po's phone from the sofa. Jin Gui? Zhang Tan looked at the name displayed on the screen and searched his memory. He remembered that Lu Ba had mentioned this name when she was talking to someone on the phone. At that time, he felt that this name was quite unique, so he had a deeper impression of it. As for whether Jin Gui and Lu Ba were the same person, Zhang Tan didn't know. However, Jin Gui seemed to be a private investigator like Lu Ba. According to Yang Po's words, he had hired someone to spy on his father and the people outside. Thinking about it, it was possible that they were the same person. The phone rang and stopped, then rang again. By the time Yang Pa finished speaking and looked at his phone, it was already the third call. When Yang Pa saw the caller ID, he immediately picked up the phone and glanced at Feng Baijin. He didn't go to the bathroom to make the call and just sat on the sofa. However, after listening to a few sentences, the expression on his face became worse. "Okay, I'll pay more. Do as you see fit. I'll just wait for the results." After the call, Yang Pa slammed the phone on the coffee table. Damn it! Feng Baijin knew at first glance that things weren't going well. He wasn't stupid enough to ask. Seeing that it was getting late, Zhang Tan left their private room and walked out of triumph. He didn't plan to go back immediately. He wanted to go out for a run. Zhang Tan found an exciting exercise to do, which was leaping over roofs and vaulting over walls. It was an exaggeration to call it leaping over roofs and vaulting over walls, but with a cat's body structure and jumping reflexes, as long as he found a suitable place, he could perform leaping over roofs and vaulting over walls. The place Zhang Tan chose was some of the houses around the old residential community. There weren't many people there at night. It was much quieter than here, where the lights were brilliant and people were coming and going. The distance between the buildings wasn't too far. Zhang Tan wasn't afraid of falling down after running on the roofs of the buildings there. At first, he was a little timid, but after getting used to it, he became bolder and felt that running was quite exciting. Under the curtain of night, the scattered lights in the community didn't allow people to notice what was going on upstairs. After running one lap, Zhang Tan felt refreshed. He walked along the dark path in the community. As he walked, Zhang Tan heard a familiar voice. He had heard this voice more than an hour ago. Chapter 277. In his heart, Zhang Tan had already blacklisted this kid. Since he had bumped into him, Zhang Tan did not intend to let him go so easily. Besides, this kind of night was suitable for beating people up. When Zhang Tan went over, the man was making a call at a public telephone on the side of the road. He was different from when Zhang Tan saw him at Henggu Plaza. Now, the man was dressed differently. He was wearing very ordinary jeans, neither too unconventional nor too fashionable, and an ordinary hoodie. When he was on the phone, his voice was suppressed, as if he was talking about something that could not be exposed. While he was talking, his eyes would occasionally pay attention to the surrounding movements. If he noticed someone walking past, he would pause for a moment and wait for the passerby to leave before continuing. Fortunately, there were not many people walking on this side of the road at this time. Occasionally, there would be people riding electric scooters, so it did not delay the phone call. Zhang Tan stood on the wall next to the road. The street lights could not reach him there. In addition, because of the color of Zhang Tan's fur, it was difficult to notice him. Besides, at this time, no one would pay special attention to anything on the wall. After listening carefully for a while, Zhang Tan speculated that the man had reached an agreement with someone and was going to do something. As for what it was, he did not know. He could not hear the voice on the phone, and Zhang Tan did not listen for long before the man hung up. Something was strange. This made Zhang Tan, who had planned to sneak around in the dark, change his mind. He wanted to see what the kid was going to do. After the call ended, the man stood by the public telephone in a daze for a while. He looked at the sports watch on his wrist and then walked toward the intersection. There was some irritation and anxiety in his steps, as if he was worried about something. Zhang Tan followed him on the wall and watched as the man walked out of the intersection and bought 2 cans of beer from a small shop that was about to close. Then, he returned to the side of the road and leaned against the wall to drink beer. He stood between the intersection of 2 streetlights, and his figure was a little blurry. Drinking could boost one's courage. For some people, it could even have a calming effect. Zhang Tan watched as the man finished the 2 cans of beer and leaned against the wall. He put his hands in his pockets and slammed his back against the wall. He didn't use much strength, but it seemed that this method could relieve the frustration in his heart. The person who was banging his back against the wall was only paying attention to whether there was anyone at the intersection. Perhaps he had something on his mind, but he did not notice that someone was staring at him from the wall not far away. The irritation in his heart made him want to smoke that thing. Unfortunately, because of the thorough police investigation last time, he was a little timid, so he usually did not bring those things with him. He searched his pockets and trousers, only to find half a pack of cigarettes. He took them out, lit them up, and leaned against the wall to smoke one cigarette after another. He smoked a lot and almost choked because he was too focused on his thoughts. He took a few deep breaths and waved his fist as if to encourage himself. Wealth comes from danger. Thinking of the benefits that the other party had promised, the fear in his heart dissipated a little. After this, he would not have to worry about not having a car and a beautiful woman. Zhang Tan saw that the man seemed to have made up his mind. He did not continue to lean against the wall and smoke. He raised his wrist to look at the time and threw the remaining half of the cigarette on the ground. He pulled up his hood and put his hands in his pockets. His back was slightly hunched as he walked towards the intersection. Zhang Tan saw this and knew that the man was going to do something bad, so he quickly followed him. The man was familiar with the place and the intersecting paths. Just as Zhang Tan was trying to figure out what the man was up to, he saw the man pick up his pace and head towards one of the paths. He waited at the junction, and about 3 to 4 minutes later, a slightly rotund man about 1.7 meters tall with a pair of metal-framed glasses and a briefcase walked past him. He looked like a normal office worker. When the young man saw the passerby, he immediately rushed over. A cold light flashed in his hand as he stabbed the man. Zhang Tan, who was standing on the wall, was stunned. He did not expect the man, who was only 2 years older than Jiao Yuan, to have the guts to do such a thing. He originally thought that the young man was only going to rob some unlucky guy and extort money. However, Zhang Tan had underestimated this person and was obviously going to kill him directly. The man who was attacked also reacted. When the man rushed over, he realized that something was wrong and instinctively dodged. However, he still hurt his side of his waist. If it were any other time, he would have a better chance of dodging or even counterattacking successfully. However, he had been drinking for the past few nights and his reaction time had decreased a lot. Just now, the man stabbed him and hit him hard, causing the back of his head to hit the wall. Now he was a little dizzy. He could see that the man was unfamiliar with the technique and was not decisive. He thought that the man was also a little timid and conflicted. However, after the first stab, the hesitation and conflict disappeared. The second stab was obviously more decisive. The man who was attacked saw this and knew that he was in trouble. Just as he thought that he would not be able to get away with it today, the man holding the knife seemed to have been kicked hard and staggered to the side. This moment was enough for the man who was attacked to find a chance to counterattack. Even if he was not in a good state, he was experienced and reacted calmly. After being kicked, the man with the knife realized that there were still people around. In addition, it was obvious that he did not have a chance in the current situation, so he took the knife and ran away. Seeing that the attacker had left, the man who was attacked stood in place and leaned against the wall, vigilantly looking around. He looked around and found that there was no one nearby. The attacker with the knife had fled. Who helped him just now? Although it was easy to make money in this line of work, it was also risky. It was not the first time that he had been attacked, and injuries were common. However, he thought that the order he took this time was relatively simple. He did not expect that the more he investigated, the more he felt that something was wrong. Today, he talked to the employer about increasing the price. Now, it seemed that the increase was too low. Zhang Tan hid on the balcony of the second floor of a small building not far away. He watched the man holding the side of his waist with one hand and taking out the phone from his pocket with the other. Hello, Liuba. This is Jean Gouet. Are you in Chuhua City? Yes, I have a problem here. If you are free, can you help me? The man said. This guy is Jin Gue? Zhang Tan was surprised. Wasn't this man helping Yang Po investigate something? How did he get stabbed here? Thinking of Yang Po's face after the last phone call in triumph, Zhang Tan guessed that something had happened and it had become more difficult. He could tell just by looking at Jin Gue. I can guess who ordered it, but I have to find the guy who did it. Jin Gue looked at the hand that was holding the side of his waist with blood and cursed, "Damn it!" After hanging up the phone, Jin Gue walked in the direction that the attacker had fled. Seeing so many forks in the road and the fact that he had just been stabbed, he was not in the mood to continue chasing. He quickly left the place. At that time, Jin Gue did not see the attacker clearly. Moreover, the street lights were not very bright at that time. The attacker was wearing a hood, and there was a large shadow on his face. He could not see clearly. He only knew that it was a young man, but he could not accurately determine his age. He could only speculate further based on the attacker's general figure and the strong smell of alcohol and cigarettes on his body. However, this was also limited. Although Asians did not look as old as Europeans and Americans, and there was a clear difference between domestic and foreign high school students, that was only the majority of examples. There were also exceptions. The kid that was blacklisted by Zhang Tan was one of them. Although he was a third-year student, he was now expelled. Even if he looked a little immature, no one would doubt that he was 18 or 19 years old. It was hard for Jin Gue to imagine that the attacker was a third-year kid. Zhang Tan looked at Jin Gue, who was still calm. There was probably no fatal injury, and the injury was not serious. After Jin Gue left, Zhang Tan continued in the direction that the kid had just left. There were several forks in the road ahead. Jin Gue might not know which way the attacker had left, but Zhang Tan could. Jin Gue could not smell the residual smell in the air, but Zhang Tan could easily. Following the smell, Zhang Tan stopped at a corner, sniffed carefully, and then walked over. There was a garbage dump over there. All kinds of smells mixed together, but Zhang Tan could still distinguish a trace of fresh blood. Although Jin Gue's injury was not serious, he was still bleeding. The knife was stained with blood. When Zhang Tan went over, he saw a hooded sweater thrown in the garbage dump. In addition to the sweater, Zhang Tan found the blood-stained knife and the watch that the kid had worn. The watch's strap also had a little blood stain. The kid probably felt that it was an eyesore and directly threw the watch away. Looking around to make sure there was no one around, Zhang Tan used the sweater to wrap up the knife and watch. Then, she hid the sweater in a shed built by an old residential building. It looked like no one had entered it for a long time, so no one would discover it for the time being. Zhang Tan did not know how long it would take for Jin Gue to find out the identity of the attacker. He hid the evidence first. Every day, garbage trucks would pass by. If he threw the evidence into the garbage dump, it would be gone in the morning. After rummaging through the garbage dump, Zhang Tan could still smell the garbage on his body when he returned home. Some unknown liquid from the garbage was stuck to his limbs. He was afraid that if he went home like this, Jiao Ma would nag him again. 2 days ago, Jiao Ma said that some people's cats like to fight with stray cats over garbage cans. She told Zhang Tan not to follow suit. When he passed by the community, Zhang Tan casually took a shower with the outdoor water pipe. The slightly cold water and the night wind made Zhang Tan shiver. It was better to go back and take a hot shower, or else he would catch a cold. Over the next few days, Zhang Tan went to Triumph several times. He found that Yang Po went there almost every night to drown his sorrows. Sometimes he pulled people with him, and sometimes he was alone. Zhang Tan shamelessly squeezed in. Yang Po looked at Zhang Tan and did not say anything. He even treated Zhang Tan as the only suitable listener, cursing Zhang Tan's father and some other people. Once, when Yang Po went to the bathroom, Zhang Tan took advantage of Yang Po's phone to look through his contacts and memorized Jin Gue's phone number. People like Jin Gue basically did not have a fixed phone number. As the saying went, after one shot, one would change location. They changed their phone number after one shot, just like Lu Ba. Their phone was not fixed, and their email was the only way to speak. On the other side, Jin Gue was talking to Lu Ba, who he had painstakingly pulled over to discuss with him. When his phone vibrated, he took it out and looked at it. The smile on his face faded. "What's wrong?" Lu Ba asked. Jin Gue handed the phone over. "Take a look." Chapter 278. Golden Tortoise knew that Lu Ba was not short of money. What he lacked was interest and fun. Now, he only accepted jobs that he was interested in. This time, he was in trouble and almost lost his life. He asked Lu Ba, who was traveling, to help him. Lu Ba did not agree or disagree. Based on his friendship with Golden Tortoise, he came over to check on Golden Tortoise's injuries. Then, he learned about the job that Golden Tortoise accepted. However, after listening to the things involved in this job, Lu Ba lost interest. He had encountered this kind of thing many times. He had encountered the struggles between mistresses, and even the fights between illegitimate children. Once or twice, he found it quite interesting. It was like participating in a large-scale TV series about palace fights. He was an important factor in controlling the plot and could even play a turning role. This could arouse Lu Ba's interest and let him experience the excitement and novelty. He could even watch the ugliness of the protagonists and supporting characters in front of others as a bystander. However, this kind of thing became boring after a lot of contact. Therefore, after interacting with Lu Ba for the past few days, Golden Tortoise had seen Lu Ba's obvious rejection. If Lu Ba was interested, how could he be lazy all the time? But now, this text message could actually arouse Lu Ba's interest. Thinking about the content of the text message just now, it told Golden Tortoise the location of the evidence left by the person who attacked him with a knife that night. This was indeed the information that Golden Tortoise needed. In the past few days, he had used the excuse of recuperating to refuse some unreasonable requests from his employer. They were private detectives, but not suicide detectives. Since they found that the people involved were not so simple, they needed to investigate more and even reorganize their thinking to figure out what could be investigated and what could be avoided. As for the number that sent the text message just now, Golden Tortoise only glanced at it casually. It was a number that he had never seen before. Golden Tortoise just thought that someone who knew him was trying to curry favor with him or that there was an internal conflict in the other party's camp. But obviously, things were different from what Golden Tortoise imagined. Judging from Lu Ba's reaction, he knew that there was something wrong with this number. "Do you know it?" Golden Tortoise asked. Lu Ba shook his head. "No, but I heard someone mention it not long ago." Although Lu Ba was not in Chuhua City or even the province at that time, he liked to pay attention to some interesting things, and one of them was about the number 46. He had a feeling that there was a very interesting secret behind this phone number. He had planned to reveal it the next time this number caused some trouble, but he didn't expect to encounter it now. "Do you mind if I use your phone?" Lu Ba took out Jean Gui's phone number and shook it. The golden turtle waved its hand and said, "Use it." Lu Ba looked at the number and dialed it. As expected, the other party's phone was turned off. Was it because of caution, or was it because of other reasons? Since Lu Ba was also involved in the case of the milk tea powder and the problematic candy, she also paid attention to it. Otherwise, she wouldn't have discovered such an interesting thing. Even the police had paid attention to this number before, but they hadn't found any useful information. After ending the call, Liu Ba returned the phone to Jean Gui and said, "I'll go with you to get the things mentioned in the message, and we'll go somewhere by the way." Jean Gui had no objection. The reason Zhang Tan had sent the message was because he had heard Zhao Yuan and the others mention the problematic kid. Even though the kid had been keeping a low profile for the past few days, probably because he had done something wrong, and he did not cause any trouble for Zhao Yuan and the others, there was no news that anything had happened to him. Zhao Yuan even heard from a third-year middle school student that the kid was doing well. Knowing that Golden Tortoise had not found the person, to prevent the man from coming after Zhao Yuan and the rest, Zhang Tan immediately gave him the clue after he found Golden Tortoise's number. After sending the message, Zhang Tan turned off his phone and went out for a walk. He didn't believe that Jean Gui and the others couldn't find the boy with the clues. Today, Zhang Tan was listening to Er Mao and Celestine's conversation at Er Mao's house. It was the weekend, and Er Mao's girlfriend was busy these days. Celestine was going to pick up his wife at his mother-in-law's house at night. As for the time before that, he had stayed at Er Mao's place to chat. F***ck, that hairy boy has been wandering around these 2 days, Er Mao said angrily. The hairy boy that Er Mao was talking about was Candy Peanut. Recently, Black Rice had been lying on the balcony of his house, and Candy Peanut would howl whenever he went to the eastern courtyard. Once, he even fought with Sahara. After the fight, he would howl again. "Why are you stopping them? Just let them interact with each other for a while before they continue to give birth," Wei Ling said. "Easy for you to say." Er Mao snorted. "Anyway, I don't like that hairy boy. Senior brother Wei, you don't understand. You haven't experienced this feeling. What feeling? Tell me. The feeling of marrying off a daughter. Celestine laughed. You're talking as if you've married off a daughter before. Tell me what it's like. It's like... I raised a good cabbage with so much effort, but in the end, it was taken away by a stupid pig. Celestine and Zhang Tan were speechless. These words were familiar, but the perspective of the speaker was different. As they were talking, a cat howl came from below. Air Mao squeezed the beer can so hard that it cracked. Here it comes again. Zhang Tan looked at Air Mao and knew that if Candy Peanut continued to tease him, Air Mao would probably run down and beat him up. Jumping off the sofa, Zhang Tan left the family building and patted Candy Peanut, who was squatting on the cement ground in the courtyard. Peanut Candy stopped howling when it saw Zhang Tan. It meowed twice, sounding quite aggrieved. It glanced at Air Mao, who was standing on the balcony on the third floor, waving its mop in protest. Peanut Candy bared its teeth and turned to leave. Zhang Tan felt that the conflict between Air Mao and Candy Peanut was getting bigger and bigger. He just didn't know who would compromise first. Since he came down, Zhang Tan didn't plan to go upstairs. He walked out of the courtyard and planned to walk around. He also wanted to check his phone to see if there were any messages. As he was walking, Zhang Tan suddenly felt a pair of eyes on him. He looked up and saw a person who was dressed like the other students in the school. However, he had a short tail at the back of his head. Zhang Tan could tell who this person was even with a ponytail. Zhang Tan looked at the person. He didn't have a satchel or any big bags. When the person saw Zhang Tan, he even turned his shirt inside out to show Zhang Tan that he didn't bring a squirt gun this time. The person was Lu Ba. Even if this person didn't seem to be carrying any dangerous items, Zhang Tan still looked at him warily. Compared to Zhang Tan's vigilance, Lu Ba chewed the gum in his mouth and blew a bubble when he saw Zhang Tan. Then he smiled at Zhang Tan and said, "Hey, long time no see." Zhang Tan still looked at him warily. Lu Ba raised his hands and signaled to Zhang Tan that he didn't have anything in his hands. Then, he walked towards Zhang Tan. When he was 4 or 5 meters away from Zhang Tan, he turned a corner and walked towards a nearby sports field. Zhang Tan thought for a while and followed him. However, he was more than 10 meters away from the guy in front of him. Otherwise, Zhang Tan would be worried. Until now, Zhang Tan still didn't know the guy's real identity. It was better to be vigilant. Lu Ba didn't walk far. He found a place to sit beside the sports field that was closest to the courtyard. He didn't sit on the stands, but on the grass next to the sports field. It's so good to be a cat. You can play as you want without the pressure of life, Lu Ba said with emotion. Zhang Tan heard this from a tree not far away and sneered in his heart. Not every cat was free from the pressure of life. Some cats even had psychological problems, but it was hard to tell. However, Zhang Tan didn't care about other things. He was now thinking about why Lu Ba was here. Was he the person that the golden turtle asked for help that day? Just as Zhang Tan was thinking, a student who came to pick up the ball kicked it back to the field. After he sat down, he wiped his sweat and was about to take a rest. When he saw Lu Ba sitting there, he smiled and said, "Hey buddy, which courtyard are you from? Are you interested in playing a few kicks? There aren't many people over there, and there are beauties watching." As he said this, he winked at Lu Ba and raised his chin to point in a direction. "That's the queen bee of our courtyard." Zhang Tan looked over there. He was a little far away, but he could still see a few girls standing on the side of the football field. From this distance, they were all pretty good, but he didn't know who the queen bee was. The queen bee? Lu Ba was puzzled, and there was some meaning in his eyes. The student didn't notice Lu Ba's strange expression, but proudly said, "She's the recognized beauty of our courtyard." Because there's the word Feng in her name, she was later nicknamed the Queen Bee by everyone. She's beautiful, has good grades, and is popular. She doesn't have to do anything in the courtyard, and naturally, there will be people helping her. No matter if they're from our courtyard or from other courtyards, they all have to bow down to our Queen Bee. "Then you must be working hard," Lu Ba said. Zhang Tan felt that there was a hidden meaning in Lu Ba's words. The student was a little careless, and he was quite happy when he heard Lu Ba's words. "Of course, we do all the heavy and tiring work. There are also people who rush to run errands. How can we let our queen bee be tired?" Zhang Tan stared at Lu Ba, and he felt that there was something wrong with his expression. Sure enough, after a few seconds, Lu Ba said faintly, "Brother, do you know the problem of the queen bee's nuptial flight in a social insect like bees?" Zhang Tan was speechless. He had a bad feeling. The boy also shook his head blankly. They didn't study biology, so how would they know about these things? When the weather is good, the new queen bee will fly out and release some pheromones to attract drones. If the drones catch up with the drones, it proves that they are strong enough, and the queen bee will have sex with them. After indulging to her heart's content, the drone will probably die of exhaustion. In short, he won't survive. Then, the queen bee will continue to fly and have sex with another strong drone again. The drone will end up the same as the previous one, and then it will continue to do the same. Until she feels that there are enough little tadpoles, she will stop. This is the nuptial flight of bees, Lu Ba said slowly. Chapter 279. Zhang Tan had always felt that only academic people would use serious academic words to talk about things that would sound like hooligans to others. However, the listeners would not feel that this person was acting like a hooligan. Instead, they would feel that this person was really knowledgeable. These people were always able to twist a good and normal thing. It was obviously a romantic thing, but when they took it seriously, it was a little scary. Now it seemed that not only those academic people could do this, but other people could also do it, such as Lu Ba. This made Zhang Tan suspect that Lu Ba was like a general who came out to take revenge on society. Didn't she see that the student next to her was dumbfounded? After the student came to his senses, he laughed dryly and said, "Ahem, in fact, I have always thought that bees are a kind of insect full of positive energy. After all, they always appear in front of the public with a positive image." This is true. Some Enlightenment books portray bees as a hard-working insect. However, there are some facts in nature that you have to admit. Lu Ba's face was unfathomable. She shook her finger and continued, "I have always thought that bees are a very magical insect because the drones in their colony don't have a father. Moreover, they are born to find the queen bee. Not to mention those that die after doing that. The drones that don't have a chance to compete can enter any other hive at will. They are strong and handsome, eat a lot, and don't work. However, when the seasons change and food is scarce, they will be driven out of the hive by the worker bees. Then their corpses will be exposed in the wilderness and become food for ants and other insects. Therefore, the drones were once given a very interesting name by people." "What name?" The student unconsciously scratched his arm as if he was scratching the goosebumps. Zhang Tan had a bad feeling. "Sad playboy," Lu Ba said. Lu Ba said, "That's why I've been wondering if the word playboy came from the male bees." Zhang Tan was speechless. He could no longer look at the word playboy seriously. Zhang Tan had been called a playboy in the past. You can't be too serious about anything. If you are, you will lose. The student chuckled, then stood up and patted his pants. "Well, they're calling me. I'll go over first." After saying that, he ran away and didn't ask Lu Ba to join them. Looking at the person who ran away, Liu Ba sighed. He ran away just like that. Glancing around, there was no one around. The sound of cheers from the soccer match at the sports field was endless, so no one would notice them. Lu Ba shifted her gaze to Zhang Tan, who was lying on the tree and yawning. Seeing this, Zhang Tan, who was halfway through his yawn, stopped yawning abruptly. "Black charcoal." Lu Ba looked at Zhang Tan and said, "Come on, let's continue our conversation." Zhang Tan was speechless. Lu Ba was probably in a bad mood. When she was in a bad mood, she would chat with others or go out to gain hatred points. What she said just now had traumatized Zhang Tan and the student who had run away. Therefore, Zhang Tan didn't want to continue listening. Ignoring Lu Ba's muttering, Zhang Tan jumped down from the tree and left. He didn't want to continue listening to Lu Ba's revenge. Zhang Tan ran to the woods and turned on his phone to see if there were any new messages. Sure enough, there were several text messages as soon as he turned on his phone. Most of them were from Golden Tortoise. One of them was from an unfamiliar number, and the other two were call notifications. Before he turned on his phone, the unfamiliar number called Zhang Tan twice. Unfortunately, Zhang Tan's phone was turned off. Looking at the number, Zhang Tan found that there were 4 8s in the unfamiliar number. The position of the 4 8s in the 11-digit number was exactly the same as the position of the 4 ZXS in Zhang Tan's phone number. Zhang Tan first thought of Zhang Dong, and then he thought of the people related to Golden Tortoise. After reading the messages one by one, Zhang Tan knew that Golden Tortoise had found the evidence. As for Golden Tortoise's questions about who Zhang Tan was, Zhang Tan glanced at them and didn't bother to reply. The phone number with 4 8s didn't ask about Zhang Tan's real identity. Instead, it asked, "Are you interested in having more partners?" At first glance, he thought it was a group chat message. As the saying goes, cast a wide net to catch a big fish. Zhang Tan had done this before. But after thinking about it, Zhang Tan felt that something was wrong. The message said, "More partners," and after sending the message, it made 2 calls. If this person wasn't fishing or had a hobby of group sex, then this person knew what Zhang Tan had done with this number before. Should he reply? Zhang Tan didn't press the reply button. After thinking about it, he didn't bother about it. He didn't play games, so he turned off his phone and left. He knew that the police had paid attention to him in the previous case, but if this person wasn't from the police, then who could it be? Generally speaking, people who used 4 8s were mostly rich or successful people. But Zhang Tan's intuition told him that it wasn't that kind of person. A few days later, when Zhang Tan was chatting with Jiao Yuan and the others, he heard that the troublesome milk tea fanboy had offended someone. As for what happened to him, Jiao Yuan and the others had all kinds of guesses. As for the real situation, no one knew. In short, the troublesome kid never appeared again. Since the troublesome kid was dead, he wouldn't be a threat to Jiao Yuan and the others. Zhang Tan was relieved. That day, not long after Zhang Tan installed the rechargeable battery and turned on his phone, he received a call before he had time to read the messages from the Golden Tortoise. Looking at the 4 8s displayed on the screen, Zhang Tan, who was about to press the reject button, stopped. He didn't know if he should answer or hang up. He had too many guesses. He wanted to know the other party's identity through this phone call, but he didn't know how to answer the call. Should he howl? Zhang Tan set the phone to silent mode, so the screen was always on. He didn't answer the first call, but the next call came. It seemed like the other party was persistent. Zhang Tan pressed the answer button after the 5th call. He wanted to know the other party's identity. Even if the other party tracked down the location of the phone call, Zhang Tan wasn't afraid. He was a cat now, and no one would believe that a cat was behind this number. After the call was answered, neither party said anything. They listened carefully to the background noise from the other party. Both parties were in relatively quiet places. Zhang Tan could occasionally hear birds chirping not far away, and there seemed to be the sound of a computer fan on the other party's side. Both parties were silent for about half a minute. Just as Zhang Tan was about to hang up, the other party spoke. "Are you interested in having more partners?" Zhang Tan was familiar with this voice. "My name is Lu Ba. I work in many fields and have a little fame in the circle of private detectives. I think you should be able to find me with your means." He revealed his identity first to show his sincerity. Seeing that Zhang Tan didn't say anything, Lu Ba continued, "I know about your deeds. If you have something fun next time and it's not easy to deal with, you can consider inviting me to join. I guarantee my character and absolute conscience in the industry. If you don't believe me, you can ask the client. The first order is free. If you like it, the price is negotiable. In fact, I don't believe in text messages. I either call or email. Of course, it doesn't matter if you're still used to text messages." After a series of words, Liu Ba finally asked, "May I know how to address you, brother?" The few hairs above Zhang Tan's eyes trembled, and he directly pressed the button to hang up. "Call me your uncle." Liu Ba, who was decisively hung up by Zhang Tan, smiled helplessly when he heard the busy tone on the phone. He said to Jean Gue, who had been silent, "The person behind this number must be bad-tempered." Liu Ba didn't know that it was because he had left a bad impression on Zhang Tan after several meetings. Zhang Tan was too lazy to listen to Liu Ba's nonsense. In the past, he wanted to ask Liu Ba for advice, but now he gave up. Liu Ba might be in a bad mood and tell Zhang Tan an animal story. That would be a trap. As for email, Zhang Tan didn't have one yet. Even if he had one, Zhang Tan wouldn't send an email to Liu Ba. Although Zhang Tan's computer skills only stopped at some basic network operations, Zhang Tan knew that the network was not a reliable hiding place. Perhaps if he sent an email today, Liu Ba would come to him tomorrow. Ask him for help? Zhang Tan didn't think that he needed Liu Ba's help now. What could he use private detectives like Liu Ba and Jean Gue for? Feud between rich and powerful families? A melodramatic family drama? Zhang Tan felt that it was too far away from the Jiao family. After turning off his phone, Zhang Tan simply tidied up the tree hole and put a bag of desiccant and his phone into a bag. Zhang Tan didn't know if this would work, but he just wanted to give it a try. Coming out of the tree hole, Zhang Tan stretched her body. She jumped and ran in the forest for a while to stretch her body. Then, she lay down next to a tree not far from the side door and rested. She watched a guard play a frisbee game with his dog. While watching, Zhang Tan suddenly narrowed his eyes and widened them. He saw a man and a woman coming in from outside the door. The man was Jiao Pa, but the woman was not Jiao Ma. If they were colleagues, it would make sense. However, Zhang Tan often went to the Institute of Biological Sciences and had never seen this woman. Moreover, there were few female teachers in the Institute of Biological Sciences who dressed up like this. She looked good, at least with good makeup. Looking at the two of them, they seemed to be acquaintances. Zhang Tan, who had just thought that there wouldn't be a melodramatic family drama, was now nervous. Fortunately, he soon found that Jiao Fox's expression was not very good. He seemed to be alienated and seriously dissatisfied with the woman. Zhang Tan jumped down from the tree and quietly approached the roadside. He hid under the trees and then pricked up his ears to listen to what the two of them were talking about. As soon as he heard the word pomelo, which was very sensitive to Zhang Tan suddenly heard a shout when he was staring at the woman. Black charcoal. Zhang Tan looked at the Jiao Pa and found that the Jiao Pa was looking at him. Professor Jiao was very dissatisfied with the person next to him and didn't want to look at him. He would rather look at the tree next to him. Unexpectedly, he found his cat hiding behind the tree like a thief. It was fine if it was hiding, but it didn't even know how to hide its tail.